Hey guys, tonight we're rewinding the clock way back. Think pre-Captain Cook, pre-settler ships, pre-everything you recognize as Australia. We're diving into a world where the land hums with ancient songs and movement isn't just exercise, it's survival, story, and spirit all rolled into one. Imagine stepping out of your time machine or cozy bed barefoot onto sun-warmed red earth, only to realize you forgot to pack sunscreen for 40,000 BCE. Rookie mistake. You might not last the first hour, let alone the first day. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Seriously, if my voice is the sonic equivalent of warm milk and a weighted blanket to your brain, hit that button. And while you're at it, drop a comment below telling me where you're tuning in from and what time it is there. Is it midnight in Tokyo, high noon in Toronto? Let us map our sleepy little global campfire. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let us ease into tonight's journey together. The first thing that hits you harder than jet lag ever could is the quiet. Not silence, but a low, layered thrum. It's the scratch of wind through spinifex grass, the distant cry of a wedge-tailed eagle, the rhythmic thump-thump-thump of bare feet on packed earth somewhere just beyond those ghostly gum trees. The air smells like dust, eucalyptus, and something else, wood smoke. It's sharp and ancient. You squint against the glare. The sunlight here doesn't just illuminate, it burns. Everything looks sharper. The colors deeper, the ochre red of the dirt, the impossible blue of the sky, the shimmering silver of gum leaves. You're not in a city, not even a village in the way you'd picture it. Instead, you're on the edge of something alive. People move with a purpose that seems both relaxed and intensely focused. Kids dart between shelters made of bark and branches, laughing. Elders sit in patches of shade, hands moving as they speak, tracing patterns in the air or the dirt. There's an energy here, a constant, low-level buzz of activity that feels completely different from the frantic pace of modern life. It's grounded. Literally. You feel the earth's warmth seep into your own bare soles. Pro tip: don't stand on an ant trail. Those little guys mean business. Mainstream history nugget: you're witnessing a society that's been thriving on this continent for at least 65,000 years. That's older than the pyramids, older than Stonehenge, older than, well, pretty much everything else humans have built. This isn't just survival, it's a sophisticated, continent-spanning network of hundreds of distinct nations, each with their own languages, laws, and complex kinship systems governing every aspect of life. Forget the myth of the simple nomadic hunter-gatherer. This is deep, accumulated wisdom passed down through thousands of generations, etched into the land itself through songlines, intricate navigational and spiritual maps sung into existence. Movement, you start to realize, is woven into the very fabric of this existence. It's how you learn the land, how you connect with ancestors, how you become part of the story. Weird and wonderful tidbit: okay, imagine needing a ball for a game. No synthetic rubber, no air pumps. What do? Easy. Find a female kangaroo. Wait, what yet? Hold on to your hats. Some groups are documented using the scrotum of a large male kangaroo as a ready-made, naturally bouncy ball. Tanned and treated, it provided a surprisingly effective sphere for kicking games. Alternatively, the plump, rounded nest of a bilby, a cute, long-eared marsupial, kinda like a rabbit crossed with a bandicoot, could be carefully harvested and shaped. Resourceful, absolutely. Slightly unsettling to modern sensibilities maybe. But hey, waste not, want not in a land where every part of an animal is respected and utilized. Talk about upcycling. As you watch, a group of young men starts gathering near a clearing, There's a palpable shift in the air, excitement mixed with concentration. They're limbering up, stretching legs, bouncing lightly on the balls of their feet. One picks up a small, dark, rounded object from the ground. It's dense, maybe made of tightly bound possum fur or something else organic. He tosses it lightly from hand to hand. This isn't idle play. You sense the focus, the quiet anticipation. It feels ritualistic, preparatory. Scholarly head-scratcher. Here's where historians get tangled up in their own academic nets. We see depictions and hear later accounts of games involving kicking or catching a ball. The most famous candidate for a lost sport is often called marngrook, meaning game ball in some languages of the Jabwurrung and Jardwajali peoples. But here's the kicker, pun intended. Was marngrook one specific game with universal rules across the continent, or was it an umbrella term for many different ball games played by different nations? The evidence is fragmented, passed down through oral histories and scattered observations by early Europeans who often didn't understand, or worse, dismissed, what they were seeing. Some accounts describe high-kicking contests, others mention catching and running, some suggest teams. Scholars are still fiercely debating whether marngrook was a single, definable sport or a constellation of culturally significant ball games sharing similar principles. Trying to pin down the rules is like trying to catch smoke. The young man with the ball gives a short, sharp call. Others echo it. The game is about to begin. But it's not chaos. There's an invisible structure here, understood by everyone present. They spread out, not in rigid positions, but with a fluid awareness of space and each other. The ball is thrown high, very high, into the dazzling blue sky. Everyone watches it climb, a dark speck against the sun. Time seems to slow. Then, as it arcs downwards, bodies leap. Not just jump, but soar. One young man propels himself upwards with astonishing spring, meeting the ball at its peak with the flat of his foot. Thwack! The sound is clean, solid. The ball rockets off again. You stare. That vertical leap, it's not just athleticism, it's almost aerial. How are they doing that? It looks effortless, instinctive. It's not just about getting the ball, it's about meeting it at the highest possible point, about grace under the relentless sun. The game flows, kicks, catches, sometimes cradling the ball against the shoulder or chest, short sprints, leaps that defy gravity. There are no obvious goals, no posts. The objective seems woven into the movement itself: control, height, keeping the ball alive and airborne. Laughter mixes with grunts of effort. Elders watch intently from the shade, nodding occasionally. Kids mimic the leaps at the edge of the clearing. The dust rises, golden in the late afternoon light, clinging to sweat-sheen skin. You feel the pull of it, the sheer joy and communal energy vibrating in the air. This isn't just burning off steam after lunch. It's training for hunting, for tracking, for the sheer physical demands of life. It's bonding. It's storytelling without words. It's a connection to country, played out on the very earth that sustains them. The rhythm of feet on dirt, the slap of skin on fur, the shouts, it becomes a kind of living pulse. You find yourself holding your breath as another player launches himself impossibly high, silhouetted against the setting sun, stretching to tap the ball even higher. The shadows are lengthening now, painting long stripes across the red earth. The pace of the game hasn't slowed, but the light is softening, turning everything golden, then amber. The laughter seems louder in the cooling air. You can almost feel the warmth radiating from the players, smell the dust and sweat. The ball is a dark blur against the darkening sky, constantly in motion, a shared heartbeat made tangible. The rhythmic thump-thump of the game fades slowly, replaced by the rising chorus of evening insects and the crackle of fires being coaxed to life. As the last sliver of sun dips below the horizon, painting the sky in streaks of violet and burnt orange, the energy shifts. The playful intensity of the clearing gives way to a deeper, more resonant hum of communal life. You smell wood smoke, richer now, mingling with the scent of roasting tubers and maybe some kind of meat. Your stomach rumbles, a distinctly modern sound in this ancient place. The players, still breathing hard but grinning, disperse towards the glow of the fires, their skin gleaming in the firelight, dust turning their legs ochre red up to the knees. You follow, drawn by the warmth and the promise of rest. Around the fires, the community gathers. Elders settle onto woven mats or low logs, their faces etched with deep lines that seem to map the land itself. Younger adults tend to the food, share quiet words, or check on sleeping children bundled in soft possum skin cloaks. The atmosphere is relaxed, yet charged with a different kind of purpose. This isn't just downtime, it's the vital connective tissue of the day, where bonds are reinforced, knowledge flows, and the experiences of the daylight hours like that incredible aerial game are woven into the larger tapestry. Mainstream history nugget: forget the idea of sport as mere entertainment or even just physical training. Here, in this fire-lit circle, you grasp its profound social glue. These games weren't isolated events, they were integral to kinship obligations and social cohesion. Participation often reinforced complex relationships, moieties, kinship groups, totemic connections, age grades. Playing together, competing respectfully, celebrating skill, it strengthened the bonds that held the community together against the vastness and challenges of the land. Games could be used to settle minor disputes: who gets the better sleeping spot near the fire, teach negotiation, and demonstrate respect for elders whose role was often to interpret the fairness and spirit of the play. It was a living classroom for social rules, far more engaging than a lecture. A low murmur of conversation rises around one fire. An elder, her eyes bright with reflected flames, gestures animatedly as she speaks. Younger men and women listen intently. She's recounting something: a hunt, a journey. Her hands mimic the flight of a spear, the cautious approach to water. Then, her story shifts. She imitates a stumbling run, a clumsy grab, and then a triumphant leap. Laughter ripples through the listeners. She's describing someone's performance in the game earlier. Not mockingly, but with a warmth that highlights both the effort and the misstep. The young man she's gently teasing grins sheepishly, rubbing the back of his neck. The story serves a purpose: it reinforces the value of agility and observation learned through play, linking it directly to the skills needed for survival. That spectacular high kick isn't just for show, it's the same explosive power needed to spear a kangaroo or scale a rocky outcrop. Weird and wonderful tidbit: speaking of energy, how do you think they prepped for serious exertion? Forget Gatorade and energy gels. Picture this: rendered emu fat power UPS. Yep, that thick, oily fat rendered down from the mighty emu wasn't just for waterproofing skin or preserving tools. Warriors and athletes would sometimes consume small amounts before demanding activities: a hunt, a long journey, or a particularly intense game. Think of it as their version of an ancient, high-calorie energy shot. It provided slow-burning fuel and essential fats in a challenging environment. Was it tasty? Probably an acquired taste. Effective? Well, they managed to thrive here for millennia, leaping like aerial acrobats, so they must have been doing something right. Maybe don't try this before your next gym session though, unless you really like the taste of, well, emu. As the night deepens, the stories continue, punctuated by the rhythmic tapping of clapsticks, two hard pieces of wood struck together creating a simple, hypnotic beat. Sometimes a didgeridoo's deep, resonant drone joins in, vibrating in your chest, seeming to echo the very pulse of the land. The firelight dances on faces, casting long, shifting shadows. You notice groups forming for quieter activities. In one circle, fingers fly, weaving intricate patterns with plant fibers. In another, two figures sit opposite each other, engaged in a silent, intense contest. Curious, you edge closer. It's a wrestling match, but unlike anything you've seen in a modern ring. No spandex, no ropes, no dramatic entrances. Just two young men, maybe teenagers, sitting cross-legged, facing each other. Their hands are clasped together, forearms locked. Muscles stand out in their shoulders and necks. Their eyes are fixed, focused inward. Sweat beads on their foreheads despite the cool night air. It's utterly still, yet radiating immense tension. This isn't about throws or pins, it's pure, concentrated isometric strength. They push against each other, testing resilience, endurance, and control. The only sounds are their strained breathing and the crackle of the fire. Spectators watch silently, respecting the focus required. It's a test of inner fortitude as much as physical power. Scholarly head scratcher, wrestling like this, along with other tests of strength and endurance like holding heavy stones aloft or prolonged standing jumps, was widespread. But historians and anthropologists grapple with a key question: how ritualized or codified were these contests? Were they spontaneous tests of strength between individuals, formalized competitions with strict rules tied to initiation ceremonies, or both? The evidence is often ambiguous. Early European observers rarely understood the cultural context. They might see a wrestling bout and record it as play or sport, missing potential layers of meaning connected to proving readiness for adulthood, demonstrating discipline, or even spiritual preparation. Distinguishing between casual tests of strength, structured training exercises, and deeply ritualized contests within specific cultural frameworks remains a significant challenge. The silence surrounding these fire-lit contests only deepens the mystery. You watch the wrestlers. Minutes pass. Their arms tremble slightly, but neither yields. The stillness is almost meditative. It feels less like competition and more like a shared exploration of limits. Finally, almost imperceptibly, one young man's grip softens. A tiny shift. The other senses it, maintains his pressure just a fraction longer, then slowly, deliberately, releases his own grip. They both exhale deeply, shoulders slumping. No cheers, no jeers. Just a nod of mutual respect, a brief clasp of hands that weren't locked in combat moments before. They might even share a quiet laugh, the tension dissolving like smoke. This controlled exertion, this quiet mastery of the body, feels worlds away from the exuberant chaos of the afternoon ball game, yet it's part of the same spectrum. Both require focus, discipline, and an intimate understanding of one's physical self. Both serve purposes beyond the moment, building resilience, fostering respect, preparing for life's demands. The fires burn lower now, embers glowing like fallen stars. The air is cooler, carrying the scent of dew settling on the earth. The stories wind down, replaced by softer conversations or comfortable silence. People begin to settle for the night, wrapping themselves in furs. The vast canopy of stars overhead is breathtakingly clear, a dizzying scatter of diamonds against the velvet black. You feel a profound sense of connection not just to the people around the fire, but to the land breathing beneath you and the ancient sky watching over it all. This isn't just recreation, it's a way of being, intricately linked to survival, spirit, and the very rhythm of existence. A soft call echoes from near the waterhole you glimpsed earlier in the fading light. Tomorrow, the focus might shift again to the water's edge, where different skills, different games, await. The fluidity of life here is constant, adapting, flowing like the unseen rivers beneath the red earth. The cool kiss of dawn dew on your bare feet startles you awake. The deep, resonant drone of the didgeridoo and the crackle of embers have faded, replaced by the raucous symphony of waking birds, kookaburras laughing like mad scientists, cockatoos shrieking their morning gossip, the softer coos of pigeons. The air is crisp, carrying the clean scent of damp earth and eucalyptus. As the first rays of sun paint the tops of the ghost gums gold, you notice movement heading towards the shimmering ribbon of water glimpsed last night. The promise of the waterhole beckons, and today, it seems, belongs to the river and its unique brand of athletic poetry. You follow the small group, the cool red earth soft underfoot. The waterhole isn't just a pond, it's a vital artery, a source of life, and today, clearly, an impromptu aquatic arena. The water, still shadowed in places, reflects the pale morning sky and the leaning forms of paperbarks at its edge. Reeds fringe the banks, and dragonflies dart like iridescent shards of glass. Already, figures are wading in, testing the temperature with yelps and splashes. Laughter rings out, sharp and clear in the cool air. This isn't the focused intensity of the ball game or the quiet endurance of the wrestling, this is pure, unadulterated aquatic joy mixed with serious skill development. Mainstream history nugget: water wasn't just for drinking or washing, it was a fundamental survival training ground and a source of competitive play. Swimming, diving, and navigating waterways in bark canoes often crafted from a single sheet of bark meticulously folded and tied were essential skills for finding food, crossing rivers, and understanding the rhythms of the land. Children learned water confidence incredibly young, often before they could walk steadily on land. Games played here weren't frivolous, they honed breath control, underwater vision, stealth for hunting fish or water birds, strength against currents, and intimate knowledge of local water conditions, where the deep holes were, where the snags hid, where the best crayfish lurked. Mastery of the water was non-negotiable. Watch the kids first. They're the embodiment of fearless aquatic energy. They scramble up the smooth, sloping trunk of a large river gum overhanging a deep pool. No safety ropes, no parental gasps from the sidelines, though watchful eyes are always present. They climb with the sure-footedness of possums. Then, one after another, they launch themselves, not just jumping, but diving with surprising form. Head first, arms streamlined, bodies slicing cleanly into the dark water below with minimal splash. They surface, gasping and grinning, shaking water from their hair like puppies, then scramble back up to do it again. It's a game, yes, but every dive is practicing depth perception, entry technique, and breath holding. You see older youths watching, offering a quiet word of advice here and there: tuck tighter, point your fingers. The learning is seamless, woven into the fabric of fun. Weird and wonderful tidbit: forget chlorinated pools and lane ropes. The ultimate test of underwater prowess: the silent crayfish grab. Picture this: competitors, often young men proving their skill, would tread water silently over a known crayfish hole. Taking a huge breath, they desink straight down, eyes open against the tannin-stained water, feeling along the muddy bank or under submerged logs. The goal: to locate and grab a spiny, reluctant crayfish by hand before needing to surface. No stirring up mud, no frantic splashing. Pure stealth, patience, and tactile skill. Success meant dinner and serious bragging rights. Failure meant a pinched finger, a lungful of water, and maybe some good-natured teasing back on the bank. It was part hunt, part extreme breath hold challenge, and 100% impressive. Now, shift your gaze to the wider expanse of the waterhole. Too sleek, Dark shapes glide effortlessly near the far bank. Not fish, not turtles. People. They're swimming, but not with the frantic crawl or breaststroke you might expect. Their movement is smooth, powerful, and remarkably quiet. Their arms pull in long, deep sweeps beneath the surface, legs kicking with a steady, dolphin-like undulation that barely disturbs the water. They cover distance with astonishing efficiency, moving with an economy of motion that speaks of deep familiarity with the medium. This is traditional freestyle or survival swimming, perfected over millennia. It prioritizes endurance, stealth, and the ability to cover long distances or navigate currents without exhausting energy reserves. Watching them, you realize how noisy and splashy modern competitive swimming looks in comparison. These swimmers are like water spirits, barely leaving a ripple. Scholarly head scratcher. Here's where things get murky, pun intended for historians. We know aquatic skills were paramount. We know games and competitions existed. But what were the specific competitive formats beyond individual tests like the crayfish grab? Did communities hold organized swimming races over set distances? Were there team-based water games resembling aquatic versions of tag or capture the flag? Utilizing the banks and reeds. Early European accounts are frustratingly vague or entirely focused on the novelty of seeing people swim well. They might mention natives disporting themselves in the water or note impressive diving, but rarely describe structured competitions with rules. Were races simply point-to-point challenges between individuals? Were diving contests judged on height, form, or silence of entry? The lack of detailed contemporary observation leaves a vast, watery gap in our understanding. Historians are left sifting through fragmented oral histories and later anthropological work, trying to reconstruct the competitive landscape of these liquid arenas. Did they even see it as competition in our sense, or just another facet of skilled existence? A shout goes up from the bank near the swimmers. A group has gathered around two long, slender shapes pulled up onto the grass. Bark canoes. They're simple, elegant craft, curved sheets of bark, likely from stringy bark trees, expertly shaped and secured with plant fiber bindings and natural gum. They look fragile, but you know they're incredibly resilient and buoyant. Two young men step forward, each picking up a canoe as lightly as if it were made of cardboard. They wade into the shallows and slide the canoes onto the water. With practiced ease, they step in, finding their balance instantly. Each picks up a long, thin pole. No paddles here. With a signal, they push off. This isn't a leisurely paddle, it's a canoe race. But it's unlike any regatta you've seen. They stand upright, perfectly balanced in the narrow, tippy craft. Using the long poles, they push off the bottom in the shallows with powerful thrusts, propelling the canoe forward in sudden bursts. In deeper water, they switch, using the poles like paddles with swift, efficient strokes, still standing. The canoes skim across the surface, surprisingly fast. The skill is breathtaking. The balance, the coordination, the intimate knowledge of the pole's interaction with the water and the riverbed. They weave around snags, duck under overhanging branches, navigating the course with instinctive grace. It's a test of strength, agility, balance, and rivercraft all rolled into one. Spectators on the bank call out encouragement, their voices bouncing across the water. The lead canoeist approaches a bend. Instead of fighting the slight current, he uses it, angling his pole to steer precisely, skimming past a half-submerged log with inches to spare. It's a dance with the water, a demonstration of harmony rather than domination. The winner isn't the one who muscles through, it's the one who reads the river best, who moves with its flow and uses its energy. They surge towards an agreed-upon finish point, perhaps a distinctive tree on the far bank. The final push is a flurry of pole strokes, the canoe almost leaping forward. A triumphant shout echoes as the first pole slaps the water's surface near the mark. As the sun climbs higher, warming your skin, the intensity of the races and dives gives way to more leisurely swimming and playful splashing. The waterhole thrums with life, human and otherwise. You watch a young girl, maybe 5 or 6, confidently swimming out to where her mother is gathering water lily roots, her small arms pulling strongly. The water isn't feared, it's embraced, a source of sustenance, cleansing, connection, and exhilarating play. The boundary between sport, survival training, and simply living blurs until it disappears entirely. Every splash, every dive, every balanced stance in a canoe is a reaffirmation of belonging to this place, this water, this ancient rhythm. The red earth may define the land, but here, in the cool embrace of the waterhole, you feel a different, fluid kind of strength flowing through the veins of this culture. And somewhere, perhaps drying off on a sun-warmed rock, someone starts idly tossing a smooth, rounded stone from hand to hand. A silent signal that the domain of solid ground and the art of the throw might be next. The cool dampness clinging to your skin from the waterhole begins to evaporate under the strengthening sun as you wander back towards the main camp. The scent of wet earth mingles with wood smoke from rekindled fires and the sweet, resinous smell of melting gum being worked on nearby. Near one such fire, you see a small group gathered, not for food or stories, but around tools that look like extensions of the land itself. Long, elegant spears lean against a tree. Curved pieces of wood, smoothed by countless hands, rest on a woven mat. And in the hands of an older man, a sleek, strangely angled object catches the light, a boomerang. The air thrums with a different kind of anticipation now, less about communal flow, more about focused precision and controlled power. The art of the throw is about to unfold. Mainstream history nugget: forget simple sticks. What you're witnessing is the mastery of sophisticated projectile technology, honed over tens of thousands of years. The spear wasn't just a weapon, it was a primary tool for hunting game large and small. The boomerang, far from being a mere curiosity, served crucial functions, as a hunting implement to stun birds or small animals, a digging tool, a fire-making friction device, and yes, for sport and skill contests. The Woomera spear thrower was the game-changer, a lever that effectively extended the thrower's arm, multiplying the force and distance a spear could travel. These weren't crude implements, they were precision-engineered for purpose, crafted from specific woods, balanced, weighted, and often decorated with intricate patterns denoting maker or totem. Proficiency wasn't optional, it was survival. And where survival skills exist, competition inevitably blooms. The older man, his movements economical and sure, picks up the boomerang. It's not the dramatic V-shape you might picture from tourist shops. This one is subtler, a gentle curve, almost like a crescent moon carved from dense, dark wood, its surface polished smooth by generations of use. He runs his fingers along its edge, feeling the balance point. He's not looking at a target, he's scanning the open ground beyond the camp, perhaps noting the direction of the faint breeze whispering through the grass. This isn't showmanship, it's calibration. Weird and wonderful tidbit: think boomerangs always come back, think again. Returning boomerangs are actually the minority in traditional use. Most were non-returning hunting or fighting boomerangs, sometimes called kailis or throw sticks. These were heavier, designed for power and distance on a straight trajectory to hit targets hard. The returning kind, often lighter, used primarily for sport, for flushing birds into nets by flying over them. The return was a bonus for retrieving it easily, or for specific hunting techniques where a curved flight path was advantageous around obstacles. The physics is mind-bending. A skilled thrower could make a returning boomerang describe incredible figure eights, dive sharply, or skim just inches above the ground before soaring back. Some accounts even mention boomerangs being thrown under low branches to hit targets hiding behind them. It was less toy and more guided missile, circa 40,000 BCE. The man takes a few smooth steps, his body coiling slightly. With a fluid, almost lazy-looking motion, he flicks his wrist and sends the boomerang spinning outwards. It doesn't soar dramatically, it whips through the air low and fast, humming with a distinct, eerie whir. It travels perhaps 50 meters in a shallow arc, skimming just above the tall grass, before thudding solidly into the trunk of a distant gum tree. Not a spectacular return flight, but the accuracy and speed are breathtaking. A young boy runs to retrieve it, his eyes wide with admiration. Now, the focus shifts. Two younger men step forward, each picking up a woomera and selecting a spear. The woomera is a fascinating device, a flat piece of wood, about forearm length, with a handle at one end and a small, carved hook or resin peg at the other. One end of the spear shaft slots into this hook. The thrower grips the woomera handle, the spear shaft resting along the length of the thrower. It looks awkward, but you quickly see the leverage it provides. Scholarly head scratcher, precisely how widespread and standardized were throwing competitions. We know contests happened for distance, for accuracy hitting a marked tree, a rolling object, even a small target on the ground, and for the sheer artistry of boomerang flight. But the rules lost in the mists of time and colonial indifference. Did different nations have vastly different contests? Were there standardized distances for spear throws? Were accuracy contests judged by elders? How was a winning boomerang throw defined? Longest flight time, most complex maneuver, closest return to the thrower? Early European observers, when they bothered to note such games, often provided minimal detail, focusing on the novelty rather than the structure. Historians are left piecing together fragments: a diary entry mentioning a spear-throwing contest near a river, a sketch showing spectators watching boomerangs fly, an anthropological note about prizes of food or status awarded to winners. Reconstructing the specific competitive frameworks is like trying to map constellations from a handful of scattered stars. The two throwers take positions. They're not side by side like Olympians, they stand at an angle, giving each other space. One sights along his spear, the woomera held steady. He takes a breath, then in one explosive movement, he steps forward, his arm whipping over in a powerful arc. The woomera acts as a sling, launching the spear with terrifying velocity. Thwack! It hits a thick, dead log set up as a target 30 meters away, embedding itself deeply, the shaft vibrating with the impact. The force is staggering. The second thrower steps up. He seems less focused on raw power, more on form. His movement is smoother, almost elegant. He launches. His spear flies on a flatter trajectory, whistling through the air. It doesn't hit the log with the same shuddering force, instead, it strikes a much smaller, softer target tied to the log, a bundle of grass roughly shaped like a small animal. A precision shot. A murmur of appreciation ripples through the small crowd. Different skills, equally valued. Now comes the boomerang contest. Several people produce their own curved implements, some lighter and more curved, others heavier with a straighter profile. The targets aren't physical objects this time, but patches of sky and air. The first thrower sends his boomerang high. It climbs, spinning, catches an updraft, hangs almost motionless for a heart-stopping second against the blue, then curves gracefully, whistling its distinctive song, before dipping and landing softly in the grass near his feet. It's beautiful, a dance with the wind. The next thrower chooses a different tactic. His boomerang is heavier. He sends it low and fast, skimming just centimeters above the grass tops. It travels straight out for an impressive distance, then, just as it seems it will crash, it banks sharply left, curves back in a wide loop, loses height, and thuds down a good distance away. Not a return, but a demonstration of controlled, unpredictable flight perfect for flushing hidden game. You watch, mesmerized. Each throw is a lesson in physics, intuition, and deep environmental awareness. The throwers read the wind like sailors, sense the humidity in the air, understand the weight and balance of their tool in their hand as intimately as their own limbs. There's no trash talk, just focused concentration and quiet appreciation for a well-executed throw. A young woman steps forward. Her boomerang is small, almost delicate. She throws it not for distance or height, but with a sharp, snapping motion. It darts out, spins incredibly fast in a tight circle only 10 meters wide, zipping around like an angry insect, before dropping neatly almost at her feet. Laughter and impressed clicks follow. It's a display of pure control and finesse. As the sun climbs towards its zenith, the formal contests seem to blend into practice and playful experimentation. Someone finds smooth, rounded stones by the waterhole, and a game of rolling stone target practice begins. Another demonstrates throwing a short club underarm with deadly accuracy at a bouncing bark ball. The air is filled with the whir of boomerangs, the thud of spears, the clack of stones hitting targets, and the constant background hum of appreciation and shared knowledge. It's a symphony of kinetic skill. Standing there, dust tickling your nose, the smell of hot wood and eucalyptus sharp in the air, you realize this isn't just about hitting a target or throwing far. It's about conversation with the elements. It's about understanding air resistance, gravity, leverage, and material properties millennia before Newton put pen to paper. It's about respect for the craft, the tool, and the environment that provides both. Every smooth throw, every perfectly balanced boomerang flight, is a testament to knowledge passed down through countless generations, a language spoken not with words, but with motion, force, and unerring accuracy. The land provides the tools, the people provide the genius. And that genius wasn't confined to projectiles. As the heat intensifies, you notice others gathering in a shaded spot, not with throwing tools, but simply with their own bodies, preparing for contests of raw, grounded power, the kind that doesn't fly through the air, but shakes the earth beneath your feet. The sharp crack of a spear hitting its mark still echoes in your ears as you turn towards the shade of a sprawling coluba tree. Here, the air hangs still and heavy, thick with the scent of warm earth and crushed grass. The focus shifts dramatically. Gone are the whistling projectiles, the arcs against the sky. Here, the contest is visceral, grounded. It's about the raw, trembling dialogue between muscle, bone, and gravity. Bodies gleam with sweat, not river water. Feet dig into the soft, yielding earth, seeking purchase. This is the arena of pure physical force and explosive agility, where the ground itself seems to hold its breath. Mainstream history nugget: physical prowess wasn't just admired, it was essential currency. Strength, endurance, agility, and balance weren't abstract fitness goals, they were survival skills tested daily. Carrying heavy loads of water, game, or tools over vast distances demanded endurance. Scaling trees for honey or possums required agility and grip strength. Wrestling kangaroos, yes, really, or holding ground against a charging animal required explosive power and leverage. Contests based on these abilities weren't mere pastimes, they were vital training grounds, proving grounds for young people, and demonstrations of capability that garnered respect within the community. Excelling here meant proving you could contribute, protect, and endure the harsh realities of life on country. Two young men stand facing each other in a patch of cleared ground beneath the tree. The dappled sunlight plays across their shoulders and backs. This isn't the seated isometric wrestling of the fire-lit night, this is dynamic, full-body traditional wrestling. They circle slowly, eyes locked, knees slightly bent, hands held open and ready. There's a tension in the air, thick as honey. No ring, no referee's whistle, just the unspoken understanding of the spectators gathered in the shade, elders included, watching with keen, appraising eyes. Weird and wonderful tidbit, forget the shot put. Imagine the ultimate test of brute strength, the bark bundle deadlift. Competitors would hoist enormous, tightly packed bundles of bark essential for building shelters or crafting canoes, often weighing well over 100 kilograms. But here's the twist, the bundles weren't neat rectangles. They were bulky, awkward, shifting masses. The challenge wasn't just lifting it off the ground, it was carrying it a significant distance, often over uneven terrain, requiring not just raw power but immense balance, grip strength, and core stability. Think Atlas holding up the world, but with eucalyptus bark and a cheering section. It was functional strength turned into a spectator sport. Who needed gym weights when you had nature's own awkwardly shaped resistance training the wrestlers close the distance? Hands grasp forearms, shoulders lock. Bodies strain against each other, feet scrabbling for leverage in the soft dirt. It's a fluid, constantly shifting battle. You see techniques that feel strangely familiar yet utterly unique, trips using the inside of the foot or ankle, hip throws that use the opponent's momentum against them, attempts to lift and destabilize. Grunts escape clenched teeth. Dust puffs up around their feet. It's not about punching or kicking, it's about control, leverage, balance, and using the whole body as a tool. A throw isn't just about putting the other guy down, it's about doing it with control, minimizing harm. Respect for the opponent's safety is palpable, even amidst the fierce effort. One man manages to hook his leg behind the other's knee, pulling sharply while driving his shoulder forward. The opponent's balance breaks. He stumbles backwards, landing squarely but not heavily on his back. A collective intake of breath from the watchers, followed by murmurs of appreciation. The victor immediately offers a hand to help the other up. A nod passes between them. No animosity, just acknowledgement of effort and skill. Scholarly head scratcher, how formalized were the rules and scoring systems? This is a major puzzle for historians. We know wrestling was widespread and took many forms. But were there standardized points for different throws or holds? Were there weight classes? Did matches end only with a clear throw onto the back, or were other positions considered a win? How long did bouts last? Early European accounts are notoriously sparse on such details. They might describe wrestling matches as common occurrences but rarely delve into the specifics of how victory was determined beyond one man clearly overpowering another. Anthropologists studying later traditions note variations between groups. Some emphasized throws onto the back or shoulder, others focused on forcing an opponent out of a defined area, some might have allowed certain holds while others forbade them. Untangling a universal rulebook is impossible. Historians are left acknowledging a rich tapestry of localized practices where the spirit of the contest demonstrating strength, skill, and control was likely more important than rigid codification. The absence of written rules doesn't mean an absence of deep understanding shared within each community. The wrestling match concludes, the participants breathing hard but grinning, slapping dust from their skin. The focus shifts. Someone drags a large, smooth stone easily the size of a large melon into the center of the cleared area. It's not perfectly round, offering an awkward grip. This is a stone lift. Not a one-rep max competition, but an endurance trial. A powerfully built man steps forward, bends his knees deeply, grips the stone with strong fingers finding purchase in its natural indentations. With a deep grunt, he heaves it up to his chest, muscles standing out like cords in his neck and arms. He holds it there, chest heaving. The spectators begin a low, rhythmic count, not in numbers you recognize, but in the fluid syllables of their language. 1, 2, 3. The count is slow, deliberate. Sweat beads on his forehead, runs down his temples. His arms begin to tremble visibly. At 18, his arms buckle slightly. He strains, tendons standing stark, but the stone's inexorable weight wins. He lowers it carefully, not dropping it, placing it back on the earth with a soft thud. He stands, breathing heavily, wiping his brow. Respectful nods acknowledge his effort. Next comes a different test, standing jumps. Not the explosive long jump you might expect, but consecutive vertical jumps, landing and immediately springing upwards again from a standing start. A young man, lean and wiry, takes position. He bends his knees deeply, swings his arms, and leaps straight up. As soon as his feet touch back down, he coils and leaps again. And again. And again. It's a mesmerizing display of plyometric power and relentless leg drive. Each jump is high, clearing the height of his own knee. The rhythmic thud-thud-thud of his landing feet becomes a drumbeat. He jumps 10 times, 15, 20. His breathing becomes ragged, but he pushes past 30, 35, finally stopping after 43 jumps, chest heaving, legs shaking. The effort is immense, a testament to the kind of explosive endurance needed for pursuits like hunting, where bursts of speed and power over uneven ground were crucial. Weird and wonderful tidbit, speaking of endurance, picture the emu egg balance run. This wasn't about speed, but about supreme control and stillness in motion. Competitors, often young women, would balance a fragile emu egg, sometimes placed on the head, sometimes held in a small, woven net carried in the hand, and walk or run a set course. The goal: cover the distance without dropping or cracking the egg. It demanded perfect posture, a smooth, gliding gait, intense focus, and an uncanny sense of balance. Forget obstacle courses, navigating uneven ground, ducking branches, or maintaining composure while others might try to distract you gently. Was the real challenge. It was a beautiful, practical demonstration of grace under pressure, turning a delicate task into a competitive art form. As the sun beats down, the intensity of the solo feats gives way to something more communal. A long, thick rope, braided from strips of tough, fibrous bark, is brought out. It looks incredibly strong. Teams form, perhaps along kinship lines. Laughter mixes with good-natured taunts. This is tug-of-war, but not just brute pulling. The rope is laid across a shallow ditch or a line drawn in the dirt. The teams take their positions, digging their heels in, finding grips along the rough bark. An elder gives a signal, perhaps a clap or a sharp word. The pull begins. It's a slow, grinding struggle at first. Muscles bulge. Feet churn the earth, sending up puffs of dust. Groans and shouts of effort fill the air. The rope creaks under the strain. It's a test of collective strength, coordination, and sheer determination. You see individuals leaning back almost horizontally, using their entire body weight, trusting their teammates. The pull becomes a rhythmic heave, synchronized breathing and effort. Slowly, inexorably, one team gains ground. The losing team digs in desperately, feet sliding in the loose dirt, but the momentum is lost. With a final, coordinated heave, the winning team drags their opponents across the line. Cheers erupt, mixed with groans and laughter from the vanquished. Hands are shaken, backs slapped. The shared exertion, the collective struggle, seems to bind them tighter than the rope itself. The air under the coluba tree is thick with the smell of sweat, warm earth, and exertion. Bodies are spent but buzzing with the shared energy of the challenges. You see the deep connection between these contests and the life lived here, the strength for carrying, the agility for climbing, the endurance for the long haul, the balance for navigating tricky terrain, the coordination for working together. Every grunt of effort, every trembling muscle, every triumphant leap is a hymn sung in the language of the body, praising the capabilities needed to thrive in this ancient, demanding land. It's not about being the strongest for its own sake, it's about being strong for something. For the hunt, for the journey, for the community. And as the dust settles and breathing slows, someone reaches for a pouch. Not for water, but for something softer, rounder, something that promises a different kind of communal energy, bouncing not from muscle, but from hide stitched tight. The realm of crafted spheres beckons once more. The satisfying thud of the tug-of-war rope hitting the dust still vibrates in the air as the scent of warm, tanned leather wafts towards you. Someone has opened a carefully woven pouch, revealing not tools or weapons, but a collection of spheres. These aren't the kangaroo scrotum surprises of earlier days, these are crafted, intentional objects. They range in size from a clenched fist to a large grapefruit, their surfaces stitched with intricate patterns, some smooth, others slightly nubbly. The mood shifts instantly. The grounded exertion under the colaba tree gives way to a lighter, faster energy. Fingers tap, hands flex, eyes gleam with playful anticipation. Welcome to the dizzying universe of traditional ball games, where every sphere tells a story and every bounce holds a different kind of magic. Mainstream history nugget: the ball wasn't a singular concept, it was a diverse toolkit for play, ritual, and skill building, adapted to local materials and purposes. The choice of material and construction wasn't random. Tightly bound bundles of grass or reeds created light, bouncy balls for high-kicking games. Possum or kangaroo skin, meticulously scraped, softened, and stuffed with feathers, fur, or even grass, yielded denser, heavier balls for throwing, rolling, or complex hand games. The stitching patterns weren't just decorative, they could denote the maker, the intended use, or even clan totems. This variety speaks volumes about the sophistication of their material culture, turning everyday resources into specialized sporting equipment. The ball wasn't just an object, it was a focal point for community interaction, physical dexterity, and cultural expression. A young woman picks up a medium-sized ball. It's surprisingly light, made of tightly bound strips of pale, dried grass, bound together with fine sinew thread in a complex crisscross pattern that feels slightly rough under your imagined fingertips. She bounces it experimentally on the hard-packed earth. Thwop. Thwop. It has a lively spring. She grins, then with a flick of her wrist, sends it spinning vertically into the air. As it descends, she meets it not with her foot, but with the sharp tap of her elbow, sending it skyward again. Then a knee. Then her forehead. She keeps the ball aloft using only her head, shoulders, elbows, and knees, her body moving in a fluid, rhythmic dance around the bouncing sphere. It's not the aerial acrobatics of Marn Grook, it's closer to hacky sack, but with a uniquely grounded, whole-body grace. Others join in, forming a loose circle, passing the grass ball between them using only approved body parts, no hands allowed. Laughter rings out as someone misses a tricky knee tap, scrambling after the errant ball. It's fast, fun, and demands incredible coordination and spatial awareness. Weird and wonderful tidbit: now, brace yourself for the bilby nest ball. Remember the cute, long-eared bilby? Its deep, spiral burrows weren't just homes, they were treasure troves for ball makers. The female bilby lines her nest with soft, shredded grass and leaves, forming a perfect, dense, felted sphere to cradle her young. Resourceful people would sometimes carefully harvest these abandoned nests, never disturbing an occupied one. The felted mass would be carefully removed, perhaps slightly reshaped or reinforced with extra binding, resulting in an incredibly soft, slightly fuzzy, and naturally bouncy ball. It was nature's pre-made stress ball, perfect for gentle throwing games or for young children. Imagine explaining that origin story on the playground. Another ball emerges from the pouch. This one is heavier, darker, made of supple kangaroo hide stitched tightly with sinew. It feels dense, solid, almost like a small medicine ball. A man picks it up and rolls it thoughtfully between his palms. Then, he places it on the ground. With a short run up, he kicks it powerfully, not high into the air, but along the ground. It skims fast and low, kicking up a little dust plume. This isn't about aerial grace, it's about ground bowling or rolling games. You see others setting up targets, perhaps a small log, a carefully placed stone, or even a hole dug in the earth. Players take turns kicking or rolling their heavy hide balls, trying to hit the target or get closest to it. It requires judgment of speed, terrain, and the ball's own tendency to roll true or not. It's like bocce or lawn bowls, but played on natural, uneven ground with balls that have their own unique personalities based on stuffing and hide tension. Scholarly head scratcher: how many distinct ball games actually existed, and what were their specific, widespread rules? This is a major quagmire for researchers. We have tantalizing glimpses, accounts of high-kicking games, circle-keeping games like the head-knee hacky sack, rolling bowling games, games resembling handball where a ball was struck against a rock face or tree trunk, and even potential team-based running games involving passing or carrying a ball. But the devil is in the details. Were there universal rules for scoring in high-kick games? Most touches, highest kick, keeping it aloft longest? How were teams divided? What constituted a foul in a rolling game? How long did games last? The fragmentation of oral histories after colonization, combined with the early Europeans' general lack of interest in documenting the rules of native games, leaves enormous gaps. Historians are forced to extrapolate from scattered references, later ethnographic studies of specific groups, and archaeological finds of balls themselves. It's highly likely that hundreds of localized variations existed, adapted to terrain, available materials, and specific cultural practices, making a single, definitive picture of Australian Indigenous ball sports impossible to reconstruct. Was there a continent-wide equivalent of soccer? Almost certainly not. Was there a dazzling constellation of unique, culturally significant ball games? Absolutely. Now, watch a group of children. They have a smaller ball, perhaps made of possum skin, soft and slightly yielding. They're not kicking or rolling it. They're playing a fast-paced, seated game involving intricate hand movements. They sit in a circle, legs crossed. One child slaps the ball hard into the ground in the center. It bounces up. As it rises, another child claps their hands under the ball before it falls, sending it bouncing up again. Then another claps hands over it on the descent. The sequence continues: slap down, clap under, clap over, slap down. It gets faster and faster. The challenge is timing and rhythm. Clapping under the rising ball requires speed, clapping over the falling ball demands precision. A missed clap or mistimed slap, and the ball escapes, leading to giggles and groans. This is pure hand-eye coordination, a playful drill that sharpens reflexes, possibly useful for catching small game or deflecting, well, anything. Another game starts nearby, this one more strategic. Two players face each other, a few meters apart. Each has a small, hard ball, perhaps made of tightly wound resin or very dense wood. Between them, on the ground, lies a third ball or a distinctive stone, the target. The players take turns rolling or tossing their ball, trying to hit the target ball and knock it closer to their own position or further from their opponents. It's a game of strategy and accuracy, akin to marbles or curling, played with organic spheres on an imperfect natural court. Calculating the bump, the roll, the slight unevenness of the ground, its physics disguised as play. The air fills with the sounds of play, the rhythmic thwop 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 of the grass ball being kept aloft, the solid thump of the hide ball hitting the ground during a roll, the sharp slap and clap of the children's hand game, the gentle talk of the strategy balls colliding. Laughter, shouts of triumph, groans of near misses weave through it all. The diversity is astounding. Each ball, each game, serves a different purpose, training agility, honing accuracy, teaching strategy, building hand-eye coordination, or simply providing pure, communal joy. They transform open ground, shaded earth, or dusty clearings into instant playgrounds and arenas. The simple sphere becomes a catalyst for connection, skill, and laughter, proving that play, in all its myriad forms, is a universal language, spoken fluently here long before the first European boot touched the sand. As the sun begins its descent, painting the sky in warmer hues, the focus of the game subtly shifts. The playful energy doesn't fade, but it acquires a different resonance. The balls are still in motion, but the laughter quiets slightly. Watchful eyes, especially those of the elders, seem more intent. The movements feel more deliberate. The dust kicked up by a rolling hide ball seems to hang in the slanting light, charged with something more than just play. The sphere is about to transcend the realm of the game and step into the sacred space of ceremony. The playful slap and thump of the ball seems to soften, absorbed by the thickening twilight. The long shadows stretch like dark fingers across the earth, and the laughter that moments ago rang clear now settles into a low hum of anticipation. The air changes. It's not just the cooling temperature, it's a shift in gravity. The dust motes dancing in the last slanting rays of sun feel charged, significant. The same balls, the same cleared ground, even some of the same players are present, but the context has transformed. This is no longer just play. You've stepped onto sacred ground. Welcome to the ritual arena, where sport transcends the physical and becomes a vessel for the profound. Mainstream history nugget: movement and games weren't segregated from the spiritual and social fabric, they were woven into ceremonies, initiation rites, and law-keeping practices. Rituals marking significant life stages like becoming an adult, seasonal changes, or important gatherings often incorporated physical contests. These weren't mere entertainment for the spirits, they served crucial functions, demonstrating readiness for new responsibilities, reenacting ancestral journeys, songlines, teaching sacred lore through embodied experience, reinforcing complex kinship rules, and even resolving disputes or enforcing community law. The physical prowess displayed wasn't just athletic, it was a visible manifestation of spiritual connection, discipline, and adherence to the law, the ancient, intricate system governing all aspects of life. Failing in a ritual contest could have serious social and spiritual consequences. You see bodies being painted, not with casual smudges of ochre, but with intricate, swirling patterns in stark white pipe clay, deep red ochre, and charcoal black. The designs flow across chests, backs, and limbs, telling stories of ancestors, totemic animals, and the land itself. The pigments smell earthy, primal. The application is deliberate, reverent, often performed by elders. The players transform before your eyes. They are no longer just individuals, they become embodiments of story, lineage, and country. The atmosphere quiets further, punctuated only by the rhythmic tapping of clapsticks, a slower, deeper beat now, resonant like a heartbeat. The smell of smoldering native grasses adds a sweet, smoky layer to the air, a scent often used for cleansing and marking sacred space. Weird and wonderful tidbit: imagine a game of skill played not just for victory, but as a clandestine legal proceeding. Historical accounts from some regions describe a unique ritual, a ball game used to settle serious disputes, like accusations of theft or trespass. Elders would preside. The accuser and accused or their chosen champions would face off in a specific contest, perhaps a high-kicking game or an accuracy challenge with a rolled ball. The outcome wasn't necessarily about proving guilt or innocence directly through the game, but about the process itself. Performing under intense ritual scrutiny, with the community and ancestral spirits witnessing, was believed to reveal truth through pressure, focus or lack thereof, and perhaps even divine intervention influencing the result. Win or lose, the act of participating under these sacred conditions often led to resolution or restitution, binding the community back together. It was justice enacted through physical and spiritual trial. The first ritual contest begins. It's a form of wrestling, but utterly unlike the tests of strength under the koloba tree or the silent endurance by the fire. Two heavily painted men step into a defined circle drawn in the earth, perhaps outlined with feathers or small stones. Their movements are deliberate, almost dance-like at first, circling each other with slow, measured steps, eyes locked not just on each other, but seemingly on something beyond. The clapsticks set a hypnotic, insistent rhythm. This isn't about overpowering quickly, it's a ritual combat, a physical dialogue imbued with spiritual weight. Each grab, each hold, each attempt to off-balance carries layers of meaning, perhaps reenacting an ancestral struggle, demonstrating control over primal forces, or testing the initiate's courage and composure. The throws, when they come, are controlled, almost ceremonial. Landing on the back within the circle might signify a specific point in the story being told, not just a victory. The elders watch intently, their expressions unreadable, interpreting not just the physical outcome, but the spirit in which it was achieved. Scholarly head-scratcher: to what extent were the outcomes of these ritual contests believed to be divinely influenced or prophetic? This is a major point of debate. Some anthropologists argue that success in a ritual game was seen as a sign of ancestral favor or personal spiritual power, potentially foretelling success in an upcoming hunt, journey, or conflict. Failure could be interpreted as a warning, displeasure from the spirits, or a lack of readiness. Others contend that while the contests were deeply sacred and performed within a ritual framework, the outcome itself was primarily seen as a reflection of the participants' current skill, preparation, and mental state under pressure, a test within the sacred context, not necessarily a direct message from the sacred. The truth likely varied significantly between different nations and specific ceremonies. Untangling the precise blend of spiritual belief, social function, and physical skill in interpreting these ritual outcomes remains one of the thorniest challenges for historians of indigenous cultures. Did they believe the spirits literally guided the ball or the wrestler's hand, or was the sacred space simply the ultimate pressure cooker for human performance? Next, a different kind of movement. A group of initiates, young men adorned with specific markings denoting their transitional status, form lines. They begin a complex sequence of movements: leaps, stomps, crouches, turns, all synchronized to the driving beat of the clapsticks and the drone of the didgeridoo. This is ritualized dance as athletic performance. It's incredibly demanding: high jumps that seem to defy gravity, deep lunges held with perfect stillness, rapid changes of direction requiring immense agility and core strength. The dust rises around their feet. Sweat glistens on painted skin under the emerging stars. This isn't just dancing, it's a grueling physical ordeal, a test of endurance, memory for the complex sequences, and the ability to maintain grace and precision under exhaustion. Each movement tells part of a sacred story, encodes knowledge of the land, or symbolizes the transformation they are undergoing. Stumbling isn't just a mistake, it's a failure in the ritual narrative. Weird and wonderful tidbit: picture a game played under the cloak of near darkness, illuminated only by the moon and strategically placed, low-burning fires, the moonlit silhouette ball game. Some accounts suggest certain ball games, perhaps versions of Marngrook or a rolling game, were played specifically during important ceremonies under moonlight. The low light transformed the game. Players became moving silhouettes, the ball a fleeting shadow. Depth perception was challenged, senses heightened. The sound of the ball striking the ground or a foot became crucial. It demanded an even deeper intuitive connection between players, relying on anticipation, sound cues, and an almost supernatural awareness of space and movement in near darkness. It was less about spectacular high kicks and more about fluid connection, trust, and navigating the unseen, a powerful metaphor for the spiritual journey itself, played out on a moonlit field. Later, a ball reappears. Not for a playful circle game, but for a solemn contest. Two individuals stand opposite each other, perhaps representing different moieties or ancestral figures. An elder places a dense, dark-eyed ball on a specific mark on the ground. The clapsticks fall silent. A profound hush descends. One individual, with immense focus, kicks the ball with precision, not for height or distance, but along a specific, sacred path laid out with patterns drawn in the dirt or marked by small stones. The other must intercept it, control it, and return it along a different prescribed path. It's slow, deliberate, charged with tension. Each kick, each stop, each controlled touch carries ritual significance. It's less a game and more a moving meditation, a physical prayer. The accuracy required is immense, performed under the weight of the occasion and the watchful eyes of the ancestors invoked by the ceremony. A miskick isn't just losing a point, it feels like a tear in the fabric of the ritual. As the night deepens, the stars blazing impossibly bright in the clear desert sky, the energy of the ritual contests gradually winds down, the painted figures move more slowly, the drumming softens. There's a palpable sense of release, of a heavy, sacred duty performed. The physical exertion merges with spiritual catharsis. Bodies glisten, not just with sweat, but with the residue of ochre and pipe clay, mingling like the physical and spiritual realms themselves. You feel the profound depth of what you've witnessed. This wasn't sport for fun or even just for training. This was the body becoming a conduit for story, law, and connection to the eternal. The leap wasn't just muscle, it was aspiration. The kick wasn't just impact, it was intention. The wrestle wasn't just strength, it was balance. In the flickering firelight of the ritual ground, you saw the seamless fusion of play and prayer, proving that for these first peoples, movement was never just movement. It was, and is, a sacred language spoken in the dialect of muscle, sweat, and earth. The fires burn low, casting long, dancing shadows. The painted figures move silently towards the main camp circle, their ritual role fulfilled for now. The profound silence is broken only by the crackle of embers and the vast, indifferent sigh of the wind through the ancient trees. This deep, interconnected world, where every game held layers of meaning, is about to be observed by eyes that see only the surface, eyes that carry with them a very different kind of weight. The quiet hum of the land holds its breath, sensing a change on the distant horizon. The playful slap and thump of the ball seems to soften, absorbed by the thickening twilight. The long shadows stretch like dark fingers across the earth, and the laughter that moments ago rang clear now settles into a low hum of anticipation. The air changes. It's not just the cooling temperature, it's a shift in gravity. The dust motes dancing in the last slanting rays of sun feel charged, significant. The same balls, the same cleared ground, even some of the same players are present, but the context has transformed. This is no longer just play. You've stepped onto sacred ground. Welcome to the ritual arena, where sport transcends the physical and becomes a vessel for the profound. Mainstream history nugget: movement and games weren't segregated from the spiritual and social fabric, they were woven into ceremonies, initiation rites, and law-keeping practices. Rituals marking significant life stages like becoming an adult, seasonal changes, or important gatherings often incorporated physical contests. These weren't mere entertainment for the spirits, they served crucial functions, demonstrating readiness for new responsibilities, reenacting ancestral journeys songlines, teaching sacred lore through embodied experience, reinforcing complex kinship rules, and even resolving disputes or enforcing community law. The physical prowess displayed wasn't just athletic, it was a visible manifestation of spiritual connection, discipline, and adherence to the law, the ancient, intricate system governing all aspects of life. Failing in a ritual contest could have serious social and spiritual consequences. You see bodies being painted, not with casual smudges of ochre, but with intricate, swirling patterns in stark white pipe clay, deep red ochre, and charcoal black. The designs flow across chests, backs, and limbs, telling stories of ancestors, totemic animals, and the land itself. The pigments smell earthy, primal. The application is deliberate, reverent, often performed by elders. The players transform before your eyes. They are no longer just individuals, they become embodiments of story, lineage, and country. The atmosphere quiets further, punctuated only by the rhythmic tapping of clapsticks, a slower, deeper beat now, resonant like a heartbeat. The smell of smoldering native grasses adds a sweet, smoky layer to the air, a scent often used for cleansing and marking sacred space. Weird and wonderful tidbit: imagine a game of skill played not just for victory, but as a clandestine legal proceeding. Historical accounts from some regions describe a unique ritual, a ball game used to settle serious disputes, like accusations of theft or trespass. Elders would preside. The accuser and accused or their chosen champions would face off in a specific contest, perhaps a high-kicking game or an accuracy challenge with a rolled ball. The outcome wasn't necessarily about proving guilt or innocence directly through the game, but about the process itself, performing under intense ritual scrutiny, with the community and ancestral spirits witnessing, was believed to reveal truth through pressure, focus or lack thereof, and perhaps even divine intervention influencing the result. Win or lose, the act of participating under these sacred conditions often led to resolution or restitution, binding the community back together. It was justice enacted through physical and spiritual trial. The first ritual contest begins. It's a form of wrestling, but utterly unlike the tests of strength under the koloba tree or the silent endurance by the fire. Two heavily painted men step into a defined circle drawn in the earth, perhaps outlined with feathers or small stones. Their movements are deliberate, almost dance-like at first, circling each other with slow, measured steps, eyes locked not just on each other, but seemingly on something beyond. The clapsticks set a hypnotic, insistent rhythm. This isn't about overpowering quickly, it's a ritual combat, a physical dialogue imbued with spiritual weight. Each grab, each hold, each attempt to off-balance carries layers of meaning, perhaps reenacting an ancestral struggle, demonstrating control over primal forces, or testing the initiate's courage and composure. The throws, when they come, are controlled, almost ceremonial. Landing on the back within the circle might signify a specific point in the story being told, not just a victory. The elders watch intently, their expressions unreadable, interpreting not just the physical outcome, but the spirit in which it was achieved. Scholarly head-scratcher: to what extent were the outcomes of these ritual contests believed to be divinely influenced or prophetic? This is a major point of debate. Some anthropologists argue that success in a ritual game was seen as a sign of ancestral favor or personal spiritual power, potentially foretelling success in an upcoming hunt, journey, or conflict. Failure could be interpreted as a warning, displeasure from the spirits, or a lack of readiness. Others contend that while the contests were deeply sacred and performed within a ritual framework, the outcome itself was primarily seen as a reflection of the participants' current skill, preparation, and mental state under pressure, a test within the sacred context, not necessarily a direct message from the sacred. The truth likely varied significantly between different nations and specific ceremonies. Untangling the precise blend of spiritual belief, social function, and physical skill in interpreting these ritual outcomes remains one of the thorniest challenges for historians of indigenous cultures. Did they believe the spirits literally guided the ball or the wrestler's hand, or was the sacred space simply the ultimate pressure cooker for human performance? Next, a different kind of movement. A group of initiates, young men adorned with specific markings denoting their transitional status, form lines. They begin a complex sequence of movements: leaps, stomps, crouches, turns, all synchronized to the driving beat of the clapsticks and the drone of the didgeridoo. This is ritualized dance as athletic performance. It's incredibly demanding: high jumps that seem to defy gravity, deep lunges held with perfect stillness, rapid changes of direction requiring immense agility and core strength. The dust rises around their feet. Sweat glistens on painted skin under the emerging stars. This isn't just dancing, it's a grueling physical ordeal, a test of endurance, memory for the complex sequences, and the ability to maintain grace and precision under exhaustion. Each movement tells part of a sacred story, encodes knowledge of the land, or symbolizes the transformation they are undergoing. Stumbling isn't just a mistake, it's a failure in the ritual narrative. Weird and wonderful tidbit: picture a game played under the cloak of near darkness, illuminated only by the moon and strategically placed, low-burning fires, the moonlit silhouette ball game. Some accounts suggest certain ball games, perhaps versions of Marngrook or a rolling game, were played specifically during important ceremonies under moonlight. The low light transformed the game. Players became moving silhouettes, the ball a fleeting shadow. Depth perception was challenged, senses heightened. The sound of the ball striking the ground or a foot became crucial. It demanded an even deeper intuitive connection between players, relying on anticipation, sound cues, and an almost supernatural awareness of space and movement in near darkness. It was less about spectacular high kicks and more about fluid connection, trust, and navigating the unseen, a powerful metaphor for the spiritual journey itself, played out on a moonlit field. Later, a ball reappears. Not for a playful circle game, but for a solemn contest. Two individuals stand opposite each other, perhaps representing different moieties or ancestral figures. An elder places a dense, dark-eyed ball on a specific mark on the ground. The clapsticks fall silent. A profound hush descends. One individual, with immense focus, kicks the ball with precision, not for height or distance, but along a specific, sacred path laid out with patterns drawn in the dirt or marked by small stones. The other must intercept it, control it, and return it along a different prescribed path. It's slow, deliberate, charged with tension. Each kick, each stop, each controlled touch carries ritual significance. It's less a game and more a moving meditation, a physical prayer. The accuracy required is immense, performed under the weight of the occasion and the watchful eyes of the ancestors invoked by the ceremony. A miskick isn't just losing a point, it feels like a tear in the fabric of the ritual. As the night deepens, the stars blazing impossibly bright in the clear desert sky, the energy of the ritual contests gradually winds down, the painted figures move more slowly, the drumming softens. There's a palpable sense of release, of a heavy, sacred duty performed. The physical exertion merges with spiritual catharsis. Bodies glisten, not just with sweat, but with the residue of ochre and pipe clay, mingling like the physical and spiritual realms themselves. You feel the profound depth of what you've witnessed. This wasn't sport for fun or even just for training. This was the body becoming a conduit for story, law, and connection to the eternal. The leap wasn't just muscle, it was aspiration. The kick wasn't just impact, it was intention. The wrestle wasn't just strength, it was balance. In the flickering firelight of the ritual ground, you saw the seamless fusion of play and prayer, proving that for these first peoples, movement was never just movement. It was, and is, a sacred language spoken in the dialect of muscle, sweat, and earth. The fires burn low, casting long, dancing shadows. The painted figures move silently towards the main camp circle, their ritual role fulfilled for now. The profound silence is broken only by the crackle of embers and the vast, indifferent sigh of the wind through the ancient trees. This deep, interconnected world, where every game held layers of meaning, is about to be observed by eyes that see only the surface, eyes that carry with them a very different kind of weight. The quiet hum of the land holds its breath, sensing a change on the distant horizon. The sharp tang of salt air and colonial disdain still stings your senses as the scene dissolves like smoke. You don't sail away with the ships. You sink, instead, into the red earth itself, feeling its deep tremor a vibration not of celebration, but of rupture. The rhythmic thump of the ball, the whir of the boomerang, the splash of confident swimmers, these sounds don't fade gracefully, they're snapped, severed, silenced. You're no longer an observer on the periphery, you're embedded in the visceral reality of a culture under siege, witnessing the agonizing fracture of the transmission lines that carried ancient games across millennia. The land itself feels wounded. Mainstream history nugget: the impact of colonization was catastrophic and multifaceted. Violent frontier conflict, devastating introduced diseases, smallpox, influenza, and systematic displacement from ancestral lands. This wasn't just physical removal, it was the severing of profound spiritual and cultural ties embedded in specific landscapes, the very grounds where ceremonies were held, initiation rites performed, and traditional games passed down. Dispossessed and forced onto missions or reserves, communities were fragmented. Elders, the living libraries holding intricate knowledge of games, rituals, and their meanings, died prematurely, taking irreplaceable wisdom with them. Children were forcibly removed from families, the stolen generations, breaking the most fundamental bond of cultural transmission. The environment to practice and perfect skills, vast hunting grounds, specific waterholes, ceremonial grounds, was stolen. How do you teach the nuances of a boomerang throw when confined to a mission yard? How do you enact a water-based ceremony when barred from your ancestral river? Imagine the scene on a newly established mission: gray, boxy buildings squat awkwardly on land that hums with ancient songs the colonists cannot hear. Children, scrubbed raw and dressed in stiff, unfamiliar clothes, are lined up. An elder, his eyes holding galaxies of knowledge, tries to show a young boy the subtle wrist flick for a returning boomerang using a hastily carved substitute. A missionary strides over, face stern. Enough of that pagan nonsense, old man. He barks, snatching the curved wood. These children need useful skills. Fetch water. Tend the garden. The elder's hands, once capable of crafting flight, hang empty. The boy's spark of curiosity is extinguished by fear and confusion. The specific angle of the wrist, the feel of the right wood, the way to read the wind for that particular throw, gone. Not forgotten in a generation, but actively ripped away in a single, brutal moment. Weird and wonderful tidbit: in the face of suppression, resistance took clever, covered forms, the hidden game of knuckle bones. Small animal bones: kangaroo, possum, traditionally used in simple counting games or divination practices, became secret tools for keeping hand-eye coordination alive. Children on missions, under watchful eyes, might play seemingly innocuous games of tossing and catching these bones. But the way they were tossed, requiring quick reflexes, precise catches, complex sequences, subtly maintained neural pathways and physical dexterity crucial for traditional hunting and tool use. Elders might watch these harmless games, their eyes conveying approval. A flick of the wrist catching 3 bones in midair wasn't just play, it was a silent act of defiance, a muscle memory preserved, a tiny spark guarded against the overwhelming damp of cultural extinction. It was history hidden in the palm of a child's hand. Scholarly head scratcher, can we truly quantify the sheer volume of knowledge lost? Historians grapple with this constantly. We know types of games existed: high kick, wrestling, boomerang, swimming, ball games, but the true extent is a vast, dark ocean. How many distinct regional variations of Marngrook vanished before they could ever be described? How many unique wrestling styles, specific canoe race courses tied to songlines, complex ritual ball games performed only at certain sacred sites, were erased? Was the kangaroo scrotum ball widespread or hyper-local? The loss isn't just the rules, it's the context, the songs sung during the ball game, the specific ochre patterns applied before ritual wrestling, the exact stories embodied in the movements. We see shadows on the cave wall, but the figures casting them are gone forever. Historians use words like incalculable and catastrophic erosion, but the true depth of the void remains profoundly unsettling and ultimately unknowable. How many Olympic-worthy disciplines simply evaporated? Feel the suffocating weight of the mission dormitory at night. A young girl, stolen from her mother's country near the coast, lies awake. She remembers the smell of salt water, the feel of diving deep, the laughter during swimming races. Here, the water is a tepid basin for washing. She curls her fingers, mimicking the smooth pull of the traditional freestyle stroke under the scratchy blanket. A tear escapes, not just from homesickness, but from the visceral loss of a skill that was part of her identity, a language her body is forgetting. The water knowledge, the reading of currents, the silent dive, the endurance stroke shrivels without the ocean to practice in, without the elders to correct her form. It becomes a ghost limb sensation, aching and intangible. Witness the deliberate destruction. A colonial official, convinced he is eradicating primitive superstition, orders a pile of native artifacts burned. Gleaming, hand-polished boomerangs crafted over weeks are tossed onto the pyre. Intricately stitched possum skin balls, containers of precious ochre for ritual body paint, bundles of finely woven fishing nets used in aquatic games, all consumed by flames. The smell isn't just wood smoke, it's the acrid stench of cultural genocide. Each crackle is the sound of 1,000 lessons, 1,000 stories, turning to ash. The knowledge of how to make these things, the selection of wood, the tanning of hide, the binding of grass vanishes with the objects. You can't relearn a craft from ashes. Even when games were observed, they were corrupted. On a cattle station, bored stockmen might cajole displaced indigenous men into demonstrating a boomerang throw. Go on, throw the woomera stick. Make it come back. They jeer, treating sacred skill as a circus act. The thrower, stripped of context and respect, performs a hollow imitation. The colonists laugh, missing the profound physics, the years of dedication. The knowledge isn't passed on, it's performed for scraps, its dignity stripped away. The true meaning, the connection to country and kin, bleeds out onto the dust. The silence grows heavier. The clearings where games once echoed with shouts and laughter fall quiet, reclaimed by scrub or fenced off for sheep. The specific dips in the land used as natural bowling alleys for hide balls are plowed under. The trees used as targets for spear-throwing practice are felled. The physical landscape of play is erased, making remembrance even harder. The body forgets what the land no longer reminds it of. Yet, in the suffocating darkness, embers glow. An old woman, hidden in the shadows of the mission's vegetable patch, uses a stick to trace patterns in the dirt for her granddaughter, not letters, but the flowing lines of a wrestler's move, the arc of a ball's flight. She whispers names in language almost forbidden, Marngrook, Wana. Her voice is barely audible, but the shapes in the dirt speak volumes. A young man, working as a stockman far from his country, finds a piece of curved wood after felling a tree. Alone at sunset, he experiments with a wrist flick, remembering fragments of his grandfather's hands. The throw is clumsy, the wood wrong, but the impulse is there. The muscle memory, buried deep, twitches back to life. The fracture is deep, jagged, and permanent. Countless threads in the magnificent tapestry of physical culture are irrevocably severed. The river of knowledge, flowing for 65,000 years, hits a dam of catastrophic force. What trickles through the cracks are fragments, whispers, and an enduring ache for what was lost. But the water, however diminished, hasn't stopped. It finds new, subterranean paths. The embers, carefully guarded, wait for a breath of wind. The silence is not the end, it's the agonizing pause before a whispered, resilient song begins again, searching for the melody in the ruins. The mission bell clangs, harsh and alien. The old woman quickly smooths the dirt, erasing the sacred lines. The young stockman hides the curved wood. The surface silence returns, but beneath the red earth, in the hearts of the survivors, the thump of a possum skin ball, the song of the boomerang, the rhythm of the ritual dance, they beat on, faint but unyielding, waiting for the dawn they cannot yet see. The story isn't over. It's buried. The suffocating silence of the mission yard, the acrid smell of burning knowledge, the hollow ache of displacement, these hang heavy in the air long after the colonial bootsteps fade. But beneath the imposed quiet, beneath the layers of trauma and loss, something persists. Not the roar of the game, not the complex weave of ritual and play, but a faint, stubborn pulse. You're no longer sinking into the earth, you're sifting through it, carefully, reverently, searching for sparks in the ashes. This chapter isn't about grand revival, it's about the agonizing, meticulous work of finding fragments in the void. Mainstream history nugget, reconstructing lost traditions relies on patchwork evidence, fragmentary records, archaeology, later anthropological work, and crucially, persistent oral histories passed down through generations despite immense pressure. Early colonial sketches and diaries, often dismissive, become vital clues when re-examined with respect and context. Archaeological finds a polished stone possibly used as a rolling game weight, a specific tool mark on wood suggesting a boomerang blank, ochre pigments in patterns near potential game grounds offer silent testimony. Later, more conscientious anthropologists, those still operating within their own cultural frameworks, began recording stories and descriptions from elders who held precious shards of memory. These diverse, often contradictory sources are the scattered pieces of a shattered mosaic. Imagine yourself in a dimly lit archive, decades later. Your fingers carefully turn the brittle pages of a colonial officer's journal from the 1830s. The handwriting is cramped, the language dripping with condescension. Saw natives kicking a skin ball. Much leaping and noise. Childish. You read past the disdain. You note the location near a specific river bend. You note the description of the ball, dark, stitched. You note the mention of high leaps. This dismissive scribble, once an insult, becomes a tiny, crucial data point. It corroborates vague oral traditions from that region about a riverbank kicking game. The officer's ignorance inadvertently preserved a whisper of Marn Grook. Weird and wonderful tidbit, one of the most poignant fragments the songline scoreboard. Anthropologists working in the 20th century recorded elders describing how the outcomes of important traditional games, particularly those tied to initiation or dispute resolution, weren't just remembered, they were sometimes encoded into the songlines themselves. A particularly spectacular winning kick in a ritual contest might become a landmark in the song describing that stretch of country. Here, where the tall gum stands, the song might run, is where young eagle soared higher than the rest, his foot meeting the possum skin star. The land itself became the living archive of athletic triumph, woven into the very navigation system of the continent. Finding that specific gum tree mentioned in the song becomes archaeological evidence of a game played generations ago. Its history recorded not on paper, but in country and melody. Now, step into the quiet presence of an elder in the 1950s. Her face is a map of time and resilience. She speaks softly, in a language that has survived against all odds. She describes not the rules, not the grand spectacle, but the feel. The ball, she murmurs, her hands moving in the air, shaping memory. Made from old man kangaroo, soft but strong. Smelled like the bush after rain when you kicked it hard. She mimics a catching motion, cradling an invisible sphere against her shoulder. We learn to catch it here, she taps her collarbone, softly, like a baby bird. Not like the hard footballs they gave the boys on the mission. This isn't a rulebook, it's sensory archaeology. The smell, the texture, the specific point of contact, these visceral details are gold dust for understanding how the game felt, how the skill was embodied. She describes the laughter, the way dust would rise in the late sun, the specific call an elder would make to start play. These fragments, shared reluctantly, hesitantly, are acts of profound cultural salvage. Scholarly head-scratcher, how do we weigh the reliability and interpretation of oral histories passed down through trauma? This is a constant, delicate tension. Stories change over generations. Details blur. How much of a description of a game is an accurate memory, and how much is shaped by nostalgia, by the desire to reconstruct something beautiful from a painful past? Did the storyteller witness it themselves, or hear it filtered through parents or grandparents who also experienced dislocation? Historians and anthropologists must tread carefully. They cross-reference details with other sources where available, look for consistent core elements across different storytellers from the same region, and pay attention to the emotional truth embedded in the telling. Does the elder's description of the kangaroo skin ball's smell feel authentic, grounded in sensory detail? Does her mimicry of the catch seem instinctive? These become vital clues. There's no perfect answer, only a constant negotiation between respect for the source and rigorous historical methodology. The truth often lies in the pattern that emerges from many fragile threads. Archaeology offers other whispers. In a rock shelter, protected from millennia of sun and wind, faint ochre figures dance across the stone. Look closer. Not just hunters with spears. Here, figures are depicted mid-leap, one leg extended high, arms outstretched for balance. Another shows two figures locked in a grappling pose distinct from hunting scenes. Are these ritual dances, or could they be depictions of wrestling or high-kicking games? The lines are blurred, open to interpretation. A cache of carefully rounded stones of near identical size and weight, found near a flat stretch of ground. Were they game pieces for a rolling contest or simply useful weights? Each find is a riddle, a silent object begging to tell its story. Weird and wonderful tidbit, perhaps the most evocative, yet frustrating, fragments are the ghost rules. Elders from disparate regions, recorded decades apart, sometimes mention specific prohibitions in games. One might say, you never kicked the ball with the toe point, only the flat foot. Another recalls, in the wrestling by the fire, grabbing the hair was forbidden, a coward's move. A third mentions, the returning boomerang game, only men who had passed the tooth ceremony could play. Are these universal rules hyper-local customs or fragments of rules from different games entirely, misremembered or conflated over time, like finding single words from a lost language? These ghost rules hint at complex structures of fairness and respect that governed play, structures now lost to time. They tantalize, offering glimpses of a sophisticated sporting etiquette that vanished. The work is painstaking, often heartbreaking. You follow an anthropologist in the 1970s, sitting with an old man who is one of the last speakers of his language. He tries to describe a complex water game involving diving under floating logs and passing a small object. His hands sketch the movements, but the specific words for the object, the exact sequence, the scoring, they elude him. The frustration in his eyes is palpable. "It's gone," he whispers, not just meaning the words, but the world that held them. Like smoke. The researcher carefully notes the gestures, the fragments, knowing it's incomplete, knowing it's a shadow of the vibrant reality. Yet, within the frustration, there are moments of pure, luminous connection. A researcher shows an elder a faded 19th century sketch of people standing in a bark canoe. The elder's eyes light up. "Ah! Nawi!" she exclaims. She points to the stance of one figure. "See, he is the polar. Back foot braced, front knee bent. Like this." She stands, effortlessly mimicking the posture, her body remembering what her mind might struggle to articulate. The static image on the page suddenly comes alive with her embodied knowledge. The fragment finds its context, not in a textbook, but in the living memory held within muscle and bone. This chapter isn't triumphant. It's dusty, difficult, and shadowed by irreparable loss. It's the slow, meticulous brushing away of centuries of neglect and deliberate erasure, grain by grain. You hold a polished stone that might have been a game piece. You read a colonial sneer that accidentally preserved a moment. You listen to an elder's voice tremble with the weight of fragmented memory. Each is a tiny, hard-won ember, glowing faintly in the vast darkness of what was taken. They are not the flame, not yet. But they are proof the fire wasn't entirely extinguished. They are the fragile foundation upon which any hope of revival must be built, a testament to resilience whispered in the language of absence and the quiet, desperate search for echoes. The archive dust settles. The elder's voice fades. The ochre figures on the rock shelter wall remain enigmatic. But the embers are gathered, guarded. They hold the heat of remembrance. They wait. Not for a miracle, but for hands willing to cup them gently, for breath patient enough to coax them back to life. The journey from fragment to flame is long, but the first, hardest step, acknowledging the sparks amidst the ashes, is complete. The next chapter begins not in the past, but in the determined present. The dusty archives, the fading ochre figures on rock walls, the elder's trembling hands shaping forgotten moves in the air, these fragments feel heavy with absence. But shift your gaze. The scene isn't static. The red earth isn't just a burial ground for lost games, it's becoming fertile soil again. The faint embers you saw guarded aren't just glowing, they're being carefully, deliberately fanned. You're no longer sifting through ash. You're standing at the edge of a clearing where the air hums with a new old energy. This is the rekindling, the moment when whispers become voices, and memories begin to move muscle once more. The pulse of the land strengthens, syncopated with the heartbeat of revival. Mainstream history nugget: the latter half of the 20th century saw a powerful surge in indigenous cultural reclamation and political activism. The land rights movement, the fight for recognition, the gradual, hard-won shift towards self-determination. This created essential space for communities to look inward, to reclaim not just land, but intangible heritage. Reviving traditional games became part of this broader renaissance, a way to reconnect youth with cultural identity, rebuild community cohesion fractured by colonization, and physically embody resilience. It wasn't about nostalgia, it was about cultural survival and empowerment, using the body as a vessel for reclaiming history and strength. Feel the energy at a community gathering in the Kimberley, maybe the 1990s. Not on a mission, but on their land fought for and won. Elders sit under a sprawling bogue tree, its ancient trunk a silent witness. But today, they aren't just recounting stories, they're demonstrating. An old man, his movements stiff but his eyes bright, slowly, painstakingly shows a group of wide-eyed kids how to hold a newly carved boomerang. Feel the curve, he rasps, placing a small hand along the wood. Not too tight. Like holding a bird. You don't crush it. He mimics the wrist flick, not the full throw, just the subtle snap. A teenager watches, then tries. His throw is clumsy, the boomerang thudding into the dirt. The old man chuckles, a dry, warm sound. First time, like a wounded duck. Again. Watch the wind. See how the grass leans. This isn't just teaching a skill, it's rebuilding a neural pathway, stitching a torn connection between hand, tool, and country. The horror hasn't returned yet, but the intention has. Weird and wonderful tidbit, revival sometimes involves fascinating forensic reconstruction. Take the case of the gripless wrestling revivalists. Anthropological notes from one region mentioned a unique wrestling style forbidding grips on the opponent's limbs or body, only pushing, blocking, and off-balancing using the torso, hips, and legs. How do you revive that? A community, working with a dedicated non-Indigenous sports historian who knew when to listen and when to step back, used the scant descriptions, cross-referenced with similar grappling traditions from neighboring areas before borders were imposed, and even studied footage of sumo and Mongolian wrestling for principles of balance displacement without grips. Through trial, error, and deep consultation with elders who remembered fragments of the rules, no grabbing, only push with the belly, they painstakingly recreated the style. It's now taught to teens as Manka wrestling strong belly, a unique blend of historical detective work and embodied cultural rebirth. Imagine relearning how to fight without using your hands. Perhaps the most visible spark is the Marn Grook revival. The connection between traditional high-kick games and Australian rules football AFL has long been debated, often controversially. But for many Indigenous communities, the spirit of Marn Grook, the high marking, catching the ball at its peak, the fluid teamwork, the connection to country resonates powerfully. Initiatives like the annual Marn Grook Trophy game played before the AFL's Dreamtime match aren't claiming direct lineage, a point historians still fiercely debate, but they ceremonially reclaim the narrative. Young Indigenous AFL stars, already celebrated for their aerial prowess and agility, participate with deep pride. Elders perform Welcome to Country, often incorporating elements reminiscent of the game. A possum skin ball might be displayed. Traditional dance moves echo leaps for the high mark. It's not a perfect historical reenactment, it's a powerful, contemporary cultural assertion. The soaring mark, once observed dismissively by colonists, is now a celebrated symbol of Indigenous excellence and deep roots. The ball might be synthetic leather, but the height, the grace, the connection that echoes across millennia. Scholarly head scratcher. How do we define authenticity in revival? This is a minefield. Is a game authentic only if every rule, material, and ritual context is perfectly replicated from pre-colonial times, an impossible task given the losses? Or is authenticity found in the intent, the process, and the cultural meaning it holds for the reviving community today. Historians and community leaders grapple with this constantly. When a community revives a rolling ball game using a stitched leather ball instead of kangaroo hide, is it less valid when girls participate in a revived wrestling style traditionally practiced only by men? Does it honor or distort the tradition? There are no easy answers. Purists might argue it dilutes the past. Revivalists counter that cultures are living entities, adaptation ensures survival. They emphasize that the core values respect, skill, connection to community and country are what truly matter. The debate is vital, forcing constant reflection. Are we reviving a museum piece, or reigniting a living flame that can warm the present? The answer often lies with the communities driving the revival themselves. Beyond the high-profile symbols, the real work is grassroots and profound. On a hot afternoon in Arnhem Land, watch a group of kids squealing with delight, not at a screen, but in the shallows of a billabong. An elder and a younger cultural officer are teaching traditional water games. Dive like the kingfisher. The officer calls, demonstrating a sleek, shallow dive. Not splash. Silent. Kids mimic, trying to pierce the water cleanly. They practice floating effortlessly, treading water using minimal energy, the old survival techniques disguised as play. They learn the silent crayfish grab approach, creeping through the water, hands feeling for imaginary crustaceans under roots. Laughter mixes with concentration. This isn't just swimming lessons, it's reconnecting with water as kin, reclaiming aquatic confidence stripped away by generations barred from their ancestral waters. The billabong becomes a classroom, a playground, and a site of healing. In community halls and on reclaimed lands, workshops buzz. Young women learn intricate weaving techniques, not just for baskets, but to recreate the tightly bound grass balls used in those fast-paced circle games elders recalled. The smell of drying grass fills the air. Fingers fumble, then find the rhythm. The first successful tight bind is met with cheers. Soon, the rhythmic thwop 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 of the ball being kept aloft with knees and elbows echoes again, tentative at first, then stronger. The game lives, not in a history book, but in the joyous coordination of living bodies. The laughter is new, but the echo is ancient. The revival isn't without friction. Some elders, carrying the weight of trauma, are hesitant. Why dig up the past, one might murmur, watching the wrestling practice. It only brings pain. Others fiercely champion it, the past is our strength. Our kids need to know who they are, where their strength comes from. The discussions are raw, necessary. The act of revival itself becomes a process of intergenerational dialogue and healing, confronting the rupture to begin mending it. You see the transformation. A teenager, maybe disengaged or struggling elsewhere, finds focus in mastering the boomerang throw. The concentration required, the connection to physics and country, grounds him. His posture changes. Pride flickers in his eyes as the wood finally, miraculously, curves back towards him, even if it lands 10 meters away. I did it, Auntie! He shouts. The elder smiles, a rare, full smile. Just like your great-grandfather, she says, her voice thick. The circle isn't closed, too much is missing, but a new arc is being drawn, connecting across the chasm of time. The clearing under the bob tree is alive now. Kids practice throws, teenagers grapple in the reconstructed Manca style, grunting with effort. Elders watch, correcting, encouraging. The air smells of dust, sweat, and eucalyptus, just like centuries past. But layered over it is the scent of diesel from a generator powering a laptop where a cultural officer records the session, and the distant hum of a light aircraft. It's not a pure recreation of the past, it's something new, yet deeply rooted. Its culture refusing to be fossilized, choosing instead to grow anew from the old, resilient roots. The ember isn't just glowing, it's catching dry grass. The fire is being rebuilt, flame by careful flame, warming the present and lighting the way forward. The journey of revival is long, but the first, joyous, defiant steps are being taken, leaving footprints of resilience in the red dust. The rhythmic thwop of the grass ball, the determined grunts of Manca wrestlers, the triumphant shout as a boomerang finally completes its lazy, looping return. These sounds from the revival clearing don't stay contained. They ripple outward, carried on the wind like eucalyptus seeds, finding fertile ground far beyond the community lands. You feel the vibration shift, the pulse of reclaimed tradition beginning to resonate in unexpected places, under the blinding floodlights of modern stadiums, within the cool logic of university research labs, echoing in the policy debates of distant parliaments. The revival isn't just cultural nourishment, it's sending deep roots into the modern world, challenging assumptions and offering unexpected gifts. The ancient games are speaking, and new audiences are starting to listen. Mainstream history nugget: the extraordinary athleticism nurtured by traditional games didn't vanish, it found new expressions, particularly in modern Australian rules football AFL. The aerial prowess, agility, spatial awareness, and evasive skills honed in games like Marngrook or its regional equivalents translate seamlessly to the high-marking, fast-paced chaos of the AFL field. Indigenous players like Adam Goodes, Lance Buddy Franklin, and Cyril Riley didn't just excel, they revolutionized the game with their breathtaking leaps, uncanny ability to read the play, and instinctive, fluid movement. Their success isn't coincidence, it's the embodiment of millennia of physical literacy, a living legacy of those ancient clearings where keeping the ball aloft was both art and necessity. They play the modern game, but their bodies remember the old ways. Step into the roar of the Melbourne cricket ground on a crisp autumn night. 90,000 voices are a wall of sound. Below, players move like lightning. Watch an Indigenous forward, number glinting under the lights. The ball arcs high towards him, seemingly out of reach. He times his run perfectly, launches himself upwards, not just jumping, but soaring. For a heartbeat, he's suspended, silhouetted against the glare, his foot finding purchase on an opponent's shoulder, a controversial but often spectacular specky mark. He plucks the ball from its highest point with impossible calm. The crowd erupts. That vertical leap, that preternatural sense of timing, that fearless aerial contest, it's pure Marngrook spirit translated onto synthetic turf. Commentators reach for clichés, like he's on springs. Born with it. But you know the deeper truth, it's a lineage, a physical inheritance echoing across time. His ancestors didn't have Sharons, but they met possum skin stars at their zenith just the same. Weird and wonderful tidbit: beyond the stadium lights, traditional knowledge is sparking innovation in surprising fields. Boomerang aerodynamics in drone design. Engineers studying the complex flight paths of returning boomerangs, particularly their stability in turbulent air and ability to perform tight turns, are finding inspiration for next-generation drones. The boomerang's curved wings, its spin, its interaction with air vortices offer elegant solutions to challenges like efficient maneuvering in windy conditions or navigating tight urban spaces. It's not about copying the shape directly, but understanding the principles encoded in its millennia-old design. Researchers pore over high-speed footage of traditional throws, collaborate with Indigenous knowledge holders who understand the subtleties of different designs, and translate this ancient physics into cutting-edge tech. Who knew the woomera stick dismissed by colonists could hold blueprints for the future of flight? Scholarly head-scratcher. The undeniable influence fuels a complex debate. Are we witnessing genuine cultural continuity, or convenient appropriation when AFL academies specifically recruit young Indigenous talent? praising their natural leap and game sense? Are they honoring a deep cultural legacy, or simply exploiting a physical trait honed by history for commercial gain when Indigenous coaches incorporate drills inspired by traditional games like high kick contests or evasion exercises mimicking hunting techniques? Is it respectful cultural exchange or superficial borrowing? Historians and cultural critics grapple with these questions. Does the recognition translate into genuine respect for the source culture, support for ongoing revival efforts in communities, and equitable sharing of the massive profits generated by the modern game? Or is the indigenous flair just another marketable commodity, extracted without meaningful reciprocity? The line between appreciation and appropriation is thin, often contested, and requires constant, conscious navigation. The soaring mark is celebrated, but is the culture that nurtured it truly valued beyond the spectacle? The impact extends beyond elite sport. In dusty outback towns, school programs developed with local elders are incorporating traditional games into physical education. Kids aren't just playing European imports like soccer or netball, they're learning Manca wrestling holds that teach leverage and control, practicing spear throwing techniques with safe, blunted poles that hone focus and coordination, playing modified versions of the grass ball circle game that demand agility and cooperation. It's not just about fitness, one Indigenous teacher explains, sweat glistening as he demonstrates a footwork drill derived from ritual dance. It's about connecting these kids to something older, stronger. It builds pride you can't get from a textbook. They stand taller. You see it, a young girl, maybe shy in the classroom, moves with fierce concentration and surprising grace in the wrestling circle, her confidence blooming with every successful block. Weird and wonderful tidbit: revived games are becoming unexpected tools for cross-cultural physiotherapy. Therapists working in Indigenous communities report success using modified traditional movements for rehabilitation. The controlled, isometric holds from fire wrestling builds core stability after back injuries. The rhythmic, low-impact steps and weight shifts from certain ceremonial dances aid balance and coordination recovery. Even the specific throwing motion of a woomera, retrained with lightweight tools, helps rebuild shoulder strength and range of motion. It's effective because the movements aren't alien exercises from a clinic chart, they're drawn from the body's own cultural memory, making patients more engaged and adherent. Healing the body by reconnecting it to its ancestral physical language. The ripples reach policy levels too. Government funding bodies, historically focused on mainstream sports, are increasingly recognizing traditional games as vital vehicles for health, cultural identity, and social cohesion in Indigenous communities. Grants support equipment carving boomerangs, weaving grass balls, training for community sports leaders in both traditional and modern coaching methods, and inter-community competitions that become celebrations of culture. It's a slow shift, often bureaucratic and underfunded, but significant. The games are no longer seen as relics, but as dynamic, relevant tools for building stronger futures. Yet, challenges persist. You overhear a frustrated community coach: "We get funding for balls, but not for elders' time." Their knowledge is the real equipment, and it's priceless. The tension between institutional support and community control remains. There's also the risk of freeze-drying tradition. Some people want us to perform the games exactly like in the old drawings, an elder muses, watching teens adapt a rolling game to a basketball court for fun. But culture is alive. Our ancestors adapted. Why can't we? The revival must breathe, grow, and remain relevant to the kids glued to phones, not become a museum exhibit. Standing on the boundary line of a community football oval repurposed for a festival of traditional games, you feel the vibrant collision of worlds. The thumping bass of a sound system mixes with the drone of a didgeridoo. Teens in football jerseys try their hand at spear throwing using a woomera simulator. Elders beam as toddlers chase a woven grass ball. Non-Indigenous visitors tentatively join a circle game, laughing as they miss a knee tap. The smell of roasting kangaroo blends with hot chips. It's messy, imperfect, alive. The ancient games aren't sealed in amber, they're walking, leaping, rolling, and wrestling their way into the 21st century. They're reminding everyone that strength, agility, teamwork, and connection to place aren't new concepts, they're ancient wisdom, encoded in movement, now whispering and sometimes shouting their relevance to a world that desperately needs grounding. The roots are deepening, drawing nourishment from the past to sustain a more resilient future. The journey isn't about going back, it's about carrying the essence forward, proving that the skills honed under the ancient sun still have profound lessons to teach under the stadium lights and beyond. The festival music swells, a modern beat underpinning an ancient rhythm. As the sun dips, casting long shadows, the focus subtly shifts towards the edges of the oval, where someone is pointing out native plants used for making balls and bindings. The physical prowess leads naturally to a deeper conversation about the land that provided the materials, the knowledge of flora, the intricate ecological understanding that sustained both the games and the people for millennia. The leap from the sporting field to the wisdom of the bush is shorter than you think. The festival's vibrant energy, the thumping bass, the sizzle of kangaroo on the grill, the laughter from the spear-throwing simulator starts to soften as the sun dips lower, painting the oval in long, golden stripes. Someone turns down the music. An elder, her voice carrying the quiet authority of deep roots, raises a hand not for silence, but for a shift in attention. She gestures towards the fringe of the field, where tall, feathery native grasses sway in the gentle breeze. "Come," she says simply. "Let us talk about the real players." The crowd drifts towards her, not to play now, but to listen, to understand. The focus turns from the how of the games to the why, the deep, whispering wisdom of the land that birthed them. You move with them, feeling the crunch of native grasses underfoot, smelling the dry, sweet scent. This isn't just about sport, it's an unveiling of eco-wisdom in motion. Mainstream history nugget: forget the concept of nature as a separate backdrop. For First Nations peoples, country is sentient, kin, and teacher. Every traditional game wasn't just played on the land, it was deeply interwoven with intricate ecological knowledge, understanding seasonal shifts, animal behaviors, plant properties, and subtle landforms. Games were practical classrooms. Tracking games honed observation skills essential for hunting. Navigation races taught reading stars, wind patterns, and landmarks encoded in song lines. The timing of certain games often coincided with specific seasons, avoiding nesting times, aligning with migrations, or celebrating abundance. This wasn't incidental, it was a sophisticated, sustainable philosophy where human activity pulsed with the rhythms of country, not against them. Every leap, throw, and kick held an echo of ecological literacy. Feel the rough, resilient strands of Spinifex grass as the elder runs it through her fingers. This, she says, is more than just ground cover. It's resin, sticky, strong. We melted it, mixed it with ash, used it to bind spearheads to shafts for the woomera. She points to a young man holding a newly carved spear thrower. The binding had to withstand the force of the throw, the heat, the jarring impact. Spinifex resin did that. It held the story of the hunt together. She moves to a clump of softer, weeping grass. This one bundled tight, soaked, pounded, it made the core of some balls. Light, springy, could take a hard kick. You realize the playing field wasn't just dirt, it was a living apothecary, hardware store, and sporting goods warehouse. The equipment wasn't manufactured, it was conversed with, respectfully harvested from specific plants at specific times, ensuring regeneration. The game began long before the first throw, in the quiet knowledge of where and how to gather. Weird and wonderful tidbit: get ready for the wind-reading boomerang trials. Forget just throwing for distance or return. Some accounts suggest contests specifically designed to test deep environmental intuition. Competitors might be given a boomerang they hadn't carved themselves and taken to an unfamiliar stretch of country. The challenge to successfully throw it after quickly assessing subtle cues: the bend of specific grasses indicating wind direction at ground level, the flight patterns of small birds showing air currents higher up, the feel of humidity on the skin hinting at air density. Success wasn't just muscle memory, it was about instantly reading the room of the landscape. The winner wasn't necessarily the strongest thrower, but the most attuned listener to the whispers of wind, bird, and branch. It was meteorology and physics disguised as sport. Watch children being shown a game near a dry creek bed. They're not kicking a ball, but playing a fast-paced tagging game called something like Witchetty Grub Hunt. One child is the seeker, eyes closed. Others hide, but not behind trees. They mimic the shapes and colors of the landscape, crouching low like rocks, freezing against patterned bark, blending into shadows. The seeker opens their eyes and has to spot the grubs the other players based on minute inconsistencies. It's hide and seek elevated to an art form, training acute observation, spotting the flicker of movement that betrays a lizard, the slight bulge under leaves that might be a resting animal, the difference between shadow and shape. This skill wasn't for winning a game, it was for finding food, avoiding danger, reading the land's subtle stories. The game was the land, and the land was the game board. Scholarly head-scratcher: were these games consciously designed as ecological training, or was the knowledge simply an inseparable part of existence? This sparks debate. Some historians argue that the ecological benefits were intentional pedagogical tools, elders designing games specifically to teach fire management through controlled burning contests near game grounds, or water-finding games using observation of insect behavior. Others contend that the connection was too deep, too fundamental, to be designed. The knowledge of seasons, plants, and animals was the air they breathed. The games naturally emerged from this holistic understanding, reflecting it without conscious lesson planning. Distinguishing between deliberate pedagogy and innate cultural expression is incredibly difficult with fragmented historical records. Did a father teaching his son a specific spear-throwing stance near a gum tree intend to teach him that the tree's blossom meant fish were running in the nearby river, or was the connection so obvious within their worldview that it needed no explanation? Historians often land on both ends, acknowledging an unconscious embodiment of knowledge that was also deliberately reinforced through structured play. The elder leads the group to a stand of majestic river-red gums. She places a hand on the deeply furrowed bark. See these scars? She points to rectangular patches of missing bark, high up. Not fire. Our old people cut bark here, carefully, for canoes or shields. But watch. She points to new growth, smooth bark slowly covering the edges of the scar. They took only what they needed, from trees strong enough, in the right season, so the tree lived, healed. The canoe race wasn't just speed, it was respect. You wouldn't race in a canoe made from a tree killed carelessly. The sporting equipment itself carried the ethics of sustainability. The act of making the ball, the spear, the canoe, was the first lesson in reciprocity. Take only what you need, ensure the source continues. The game honored the life that provided the tool. Weird and wonderful tidbit: consider the seasonal silence rule. Oral histories from some coastal regions hint at unwritten laws surrounding certain water games. During specific times, perhaps when migratory whales were passing close to shore or when certain fish were spawning in estuaries, loud, splashy games might be discouraged or moved further inland. The reasoning: respect. Not to avoid scaring the animals, though that was part of it, but because the immense presence of these creatures during sacred migratory times demanded a quieter reverence. The water itself was seen as holding a different kind of energy during these periods. Playing a raucous diving game might be seen as disrespectful intrusion on a profound natural event. Sport yielded to the deeper rhythms of the sea. As twilight deepens, the elder points to the emerging stars. That one, she indicates a bright point near the horizon, we call him the emu in the sky. His neck points the way. When he turns like this, she traces an arc with her finger, it tells us the time is right for the big gatherings, for the games that need many people. Celestial navigation wasn't just for long journeys, it governed the social calendar, including the timing of major sporting contests and ceremonies. Games weren't scheduled by a committee, they were called by the land and sky when the rains came, when the bunya nuts fell, when the koloba flowered. Playing was an act of synchronicity with the cosmos. You feel the profound depth of this connection. The high kick wasn't just athleticism, it was an echo of the kangaroo's leap, an understanding of muscle and tendon refined by millennia of observation. The silent canoe pole wasn't just stealth, it was respect for the waterhole's delicate balance, avoiding disturbance to nesting birds or feeding fish. The rolling stone game wasn't just strategy, it taught the lie of the land, how water flows, how slopes affect motion. Every game was a love letter to the intricate web of life, a way of knowing country through the body's movement upon it. The sustainability wasn't preached, it was played, embodied, passed down in the dust kicked up by dancing feet, the splash of a diver entering still water, the smooth arc of a well-thrown spear against the setting sun. The land wasn't a stadium, it was the CO creator, the silent referee, the ultimate source of every rule, every material, every triumphant shout. The first stars are bright pinpricks now. The scent of cooling earth rises. The crowd is quiet, absorbing. The festival lights seem almost garish against this ancient, starlit wisdom. The games revived on the oval are sparks, but the true fire the deep, slow-burning understanding of how to move with the land, not just on it, is being gently rekindled in their hearts. It's a reminder that the greatest sporting legacy isn't the trophy, but the timeless, sustainable rhythm of belonging. The journey from game to ecological wisdom feels complete, yet it's just the beginning of understanding the true stakes of remembering. The shadows under the river red gums deepen, hinting at the fragility of this reconnection in a rapidly changing world. The elder's finger tracing the emu in the sky fades as the brilliant stars overhead seem to dim, not from clouds, but from a creeping, intangible shadow. The profound connection to country, the land as teacher, provider, and sacred game board feels suddenly, acutely fragile. The sweet scent of native grasses is undercut by a whiff of something acrid, distant smoke. The gentle night breeze carries not just whispers of ancestors, but the low, relentless hum of threats the old games never faced. The revival's tender flame flickers against winds far colder than any desert night. The joy of reconnection is real, but the path forward is strewn with new, formidable hurdles. The land that taught the games is itself under siege. Mainstream history nugget: the hard-won cultural revival exists alongside ongoing, existential challenges. Climate change isn't an abstract future threat, it's desiccating sacred waterholes where swimming games were taught, intensifying bushfires that ravage landscapes holding songlines and ancient game grounds, and altering seasonal patterns that once dictated the timing of ceremonies and contests. Simultaneously, protracted land rights battles continue. Even on recognized native title lands, mining interests, agricultural expansion, or infrastructure projects can threaten specific sites crucial for rituals or the harvesting of traditional materials for balls, spears, or canoes. Securing the legal right to land doesn't always guarantee protection for the intricate cultural geography woven into it. The physical stage for revival is literally shifting and shrinking. Feel the tension at a community meeting hall, months after the hopeful festival. Maps are spread out, not of star paths, but of proposed gas exploration leases overlapping a region marked with intricate dots and lines. An elder, the same one who spoke of Spinifex resin, taps a specific dot on the map. Here, her voice is tight with anger and grief. This soak, it's not just water. It's where the Wana women's rolling game was played at the first rains. The stones they used, they came from that hill, shaped by generations. The company says they'll avoid significant sites. But is our game significant to them? A younger woman adds, the soak is already drying. Last summer, the water was too low, too warm for the diving lessons. The kids couldn't practice. The revival isn't just about relearning skills, it's a race against time and temperature to practice them in their rightful ecological context before that context vanishes. Weird and wonderful tidbit, confronting the potential loss of physical sites, technologists and communities are pioneering the digital songline boomerang range. Using drones, 3D laser scanning, and virtual reality, teams are meticulously mapping sacred valleys or coastlines crucial for traditional games areas threatened by rising seas, erosion, or development. Imagine, a young person dons a VR headset. Suddenly, they stand on a pristine, virtual recreation of a coastal dune system now eroded. They hold a motion sensor controller shaped like a traditional boomerang. An elder's voice recorded before they passed guides them, feel the sea breeze, see how the Spinifex bends, throw with it, not against. They practice the throw, watching their virtual boomerang soar over a landscape that no longer physically exists. It's preservation through pixels, a desperate, innovative lifeline for spatial memory when the land itself is stolen or altered beyond recognition. Is it the same as feeling the real wind? No. But is it better than total oblivion? The communities grappling with this choice face agonizing trade-offs. Scholarly head-scratcher, this digital preservation ignites fierce debate. Can embodied cultural knowledge truly survive virtual transmission? Historians, anthropologists, and community leaders are deeply divided. Can the subtle wrist flick for a returning boomerang, the exact pressure of a foot on uneven ground during a wrestling match, or the visceral feel of cold, deep water during a diving trial be learned through a screen? Proponents argue VR can preserve crucial spatial relationships and auditory cues. Wind, water sounds lost when sights are gone, providing a vital scaffold for elders to teach around. Critics fear it creates a dangerous illusion that the screen experience becomes the knowledge, divorcing the skill from the living, breathing, feeling connection to country that was its essence. They argue true embodiment requires the smell of the earth, the resistance of the water, the unpredictable gust of wind on the skin. Can muscle memory form in a virtual vacuum? The debate highlights the heartbreaking dilemma. When the physical land is inaccessible or altered, is digital mimicry a brave adaptation or a profound, irreversible step towards disembodiment? There's no consensus, only the shared ache of necessity. Beyond the virtual realm, the fight is painfully tangible. On a stretch of coastline slated for a luxury resort development, watch community members and allies stage a games, not Gates protest camp. It's not just about blocking bulldozers, it's about active cultural assertion. During the day, they don't just hold signs, they play. They weave balls from coastal grasses right on the contested sand. They demonstrate traditional fishing spear techniques in the shallows. They teach children the silent crayfish grab approach in rock pools, exactly where their ancestors practiced. Journalists film elders explaining, not just the historical significance, but the ongoing cultural need for this specific place to teach the skills, to feel the specific currents, to harvest the specific shells used for game counters. The protest isn't just political, it's a living enactment of the connection between game, skill, and this exact piece of country. Security guards shift uncomfortably, unsure how to handle a demonstration that involves laughter, focused skill, and deep reverence alongside defiance. Weird and wonderful tidbit, in a fascinating blend of old and new, drone corroborees are emerging. Frustrated by the inaccessibility of remote or sacred sites due to fires or fences, some communities use drones not just for mapping, but for ceremonial surveillance and digital storytelling. A drone, operated by a community member, flies over a sacred gorge where initiation races involving climbing and swimming were once held. It's currently inaccessible due to flood damage. The drone's camera feeds live footage to a screen back at the community center. Elders narrate the landscape as it appears. See that overhang, that's where the young men rested after the swim. The water used to swirl there, perfect for testing strength against the current. Youth watch, connecting the stories to the real, albeit distant, topography. It's a corroboree gathering mediated by technology, ensuring the stories and the sacred geography remain linked, even when physical presence is impossible. It's poignant, innovative, and underscores the profound dislocation. The challenges aren't only external. Within communities, the pressures of the modern world strain the revival. How do I tell my son to practice the manka wrestling? A father sighs, looking at his phone buzzing with messages, when he's glued to this, or needs to drive 3 hours for a job interview. Time, fractured by Western schedules, wage labor, and digital distraction, competes fiercely with the slow, immersive process of learning deep cultural skills. Elders lament the shortened attention spans, the struggle to get youth to commit to the painstaking process of carving a proper boomerang over weeks when instant gratification is the norm. The revival requires not just relearning skills, but recalibrating time itself to a rhythm more attuned to country than the clock. Funding, too, remains a precarious lifeline. Government grants for cultural programs are often short-term, project-based, and burdened with exhausting bureaucracy. We spend more time writing reports about the revival than actually reviving, a cultural officer grumbles. Securing sustainable, long-term support that respects community autonomy and the organic, non-linear nature of cultural transmission is an ongoing battle. The passion is there, the knowledge holders are while they last, but the resources are perpetually scarce. Standing on a bluff overlooking a valley scarred by recent wildfires, an elder and a young firefighter trained in modern techniques but also learning traditional fire management survey the damage. Charred skeletons of trees stand where initiation running trails once wound. The ground is ash. The games we played here, the elder says softly, they taught how to read fire, how to move with it, respect it. Now, he gestures at the devastation, partly fueled by climate change, partly by a century of suppressing the cool, cultural burns that once kept the country healthy. How do we teach that now, when the fire itself has changed? The young firefighter nods, his face grim. We learn anew, uncle. From this. And from the old ways that still remember balance. It's a microcosm of the revival's core challenge, honoring the past while adapting to a present the ancestors could never have envisioned, using the wisdom of the old games to navigate a future growing more precarious by the day. The smell of charred earth is overwhelming. The digital boomerang range hums quietly in a community center miles away. The protest camp holds its ground by the sea. The firefighter and the elder stand silent. The flame of revival still burns, but it's a candle in a gathering storm. The path forward demands not just remembrance, but resilience, innovation, and an unwavering fight for the land that holds the stories, the songs, and the very ground where the games must, against all odds, be played. The final chapter isn't about conclusion, but about standing on the precipice of remembrance, looking back with grief, forward with fierce determination, and asking, what is worth saving and how far will we go to play the game again, truly, on country that remembers. The scent of charred earth from the fire-scarred valley blends with the salt tang carried from the games, not Gates' protest camp and the sterile hum of the digital songline drone. You stand on that metaphorical precipice of remembrance, the wind pulling at you from multiple directions, the deep past whispering its wisdom, the urgent present demanding adaptation, and an uncertain future looming. Below lies the vast chasm of what was lost, ahead, the fragile, hopeful paths of revival snake through treacherous terrain. This isn't an ending, but a reckoning. How do you hold the echoes of games played for millennia when the ground itself shifts beneath your feet? How do you ensure the whispers aren't drowned out by the storms of now? The final question hangs heavy: what endures mainstream history nugget? The fight for preservation increasingly leverages international frameworks. Communities are pursuing recognition of traditional games and their associated landscapes as intangible cultural heritage through UNESCO. This isn't just about prestige, it's a strategic tool. Listing Marn Grook or specific ceremonial contests provides global visibility, strengthens legal arguments against destructive development on crucial sites, and pressures governments to allocate dedicated resources for transmission programs. It frames these games not as relics, but as living, evolving expressions of human creativity and resilience worthy of global protection. Success, however, is complex, demanding meticulous documentation that itself risks ossifying fluid traditions into fixed museum pieces for international scrutiny. Feel the intense focus in a makeshift recording studio set up in a community center. An elder, her voice a soft rasp holding immeasurable weight, speaks slowly into a high-quality microphone. Beside her, a linguist and a young community archivist, faces etched with concentration. They aren't just recording words, they're documenting the kinetic poetry of a game. The ball. You didn't grip it for the high kick, she demonstrates with empty hands, her aged body instinctively coiling, her foot lifting in a smooth, powerful arc. You cradled it. Like this. Off the chest, then up with the flat foot. Not a toe poke. Never. It was disrespectful to the animal who gave the skin. She pauses, eyes distant, searching for the feel, the rightness of the motion. The sound. A soft thump, not a slap. The archivist captures not just the description, but the subtle shifts in her posture, the reverence in her gesture. This is embodied archiving, attempting to bottle lightning the muscle memory, the sensory detail, the unwritten etiquette. Each recorded breath is a race against time, a desperate bid to anchor the intangible before the last living libraries close. Weird and wonderful tidbit, emerging from this pressure is the concept of seed games. Recognizing that full revival of complex rituals or large-scale events might be impossible due to lost knowledge, altered landscapes, or cultural shifts, communities focus on preserving core, adaptable elements. Think of them as cultural DNA, the leap, isolating the biomechanics and training methods for the spectacular vertical jump, teaching it through modified drills. The silent throw, mastering the wrist flick and body mechanics for the no-splash water entry, applicable in modern swimming or life-saving. The grounded strategy, adapting the spatial awareness and tactical thinking from stone rolling or hide ball bowling into board games or interactive digital apps. The circle keep, reviving the foot-knee-elbow coordination of the grass ball game as a dynamic, non-competitive exercise. These seeds are portable, teachable, and less reliant on specific, vulnerable sites. They keep the core physical intelligence alive, hoping future generations, on healthier country, might one day reassemble the fuller plant. Scholarly head-scratcher, does focusing on seed games and digital preservation ultimately signal a retreat from the dream of holistic cultural revival on country? This is the agonizing question haunting scholars and communities alike. Is the meticulous recording of an elder's description of a waterhole diving game, while that waterhole dries up irrevocably, an act of faithful preservation or a funeral rite? Does the VR boomerang range, however well-intentioned, normalize the absence of the actual land, making its potential loss more acceptable. Historians debate whether these adaptations represent brilliant resilience, saving what can be saved in impossible circumstances, or a tragic, incremental concession that the deep, place-based connection central to these traditions is becoming unsustainable. Is the future one of fragmented echoes, however lovingly preserved, rather than the resonant whole? There is no victor in this debate, only the shared weight of navigating loss. Witness the quiet power of intergenerational memory camps. On a patch of secured native title land, elders, adults, and youth camp for days. By day, they practice the tangible seed games, weaving small grass balls, learning the manka push wrestle stance, trying boomerang throws. By night, around the fire, real, not virtual, elders share stories about the games, not just how they were played, but why, woven with tales of ancestors, animal spirits, and the land's moods. They point to the stars, recounting how the sky emu dictated gathering times. A teenager asks, "But uncle, if the seasons are all messed up now, how do we know when?" The elder doesn't flinch. "We watch closer. We listen harder. We learn the new signs the land is giving us. The games taught us to pay attention, that skill hasn't changed. This camp isn't replicating the past, it's forging a new continuity, using the principles honed by the game's observation, adaptation, resilience, deep listening to navigate the uncharted territory of the present." The fire crackles, casting dancing shadows. The leap practiced that day wasn't just physical training, it was a leap of faith in the future. Weird and wonderful tidbit: in a powerful act of defiance and memory, some communities stage ghost games. On sites now inaccessible, paved over, flooded by dams, or contaminated, they gather at dawn. No equipment. No loud play. They walk the perimeter that was once the game ground. They stand where goals might have been. Elders describe the sounds, the smells, the feel of the game that once animated that space. Participants might mime a high catch, a rolling throw, a wrestler's stance in silence. It's a somber ceremony of remembrance, a physical haunting of the space by the ghosts of the games that belonged there. It acknowledges the loss while fiercely asserting, "We remember. This was ours. This mattered." It's grief and love made visible, etched onto the asphalt or the fenced-off dirt. The path forward is not one path, but many, legal battles fought with UNESCO documents in hand, digital archives glowing in server farms, seed games sprouting in community halls and schoolyards, memory camps forging bonds under changing stars, silent ghost games reclaiming stolen ground through presence. The revival isn't a single flame, it's a constellation of sparks, some bright, some flickering, scattered across a dark sky. Standing on the cliff edge, the wind carries not just the smell of ash and salt, but the faint, rhythmic thump-thump-thump of a grass ball being kept aloft by determined young knees and elbows in a community center miles away. You hear the focused breath of a teenager mastering the silent water entry in a chlorinated pool, channeling ancestors who dove in billabongs. You see the defiant stance of protesters playing manka wrestling on contested sand. The loss is immense, the challenge is daunting, the future uncertain. But the essence of the games, the connection, the skill, the respect, the deep attunement to being present in body and spirit, these are not relics. They are tools for survival, honed over 65,000 years. They are the compasses pointing towards resilience. The games endure not as perfect replicas of a lost world, but as a living language of resilience, spoken in the dialect of leaps, throws, and the quiet, unwavering determination to remember, to adapt, and to keep playing, however the ground shifts. The precipice isn't an end point, it's a vantage point. From here, you see the long, painful arc of loss, the fragile, beautiful threads of revival, and the stubborn, enduring truth, as long as there are hands to weave the grass, feet to feel the earth, and hearts that remember the song of the boomerang in flight, the spirit of the games will find a way. The final throw hasn't landed. The game continues. The rhythmic thump 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 of the grass ball. The distant whir of a boomerang finding its way home. The soft slap of bare feet on red earth. These sounds begin to soften now, blending with the gentle sigh of the wind through the ancient gum trees. The fierce energy of the cliff edge, the ache of memory, the sparks of revival. Let them settle. Feel the cool, red earth beneath you, solid and enduring. Smell the clean scent of eucalyptus carried on the night air, clearing the lingering traces of ash and salt. You've journeyed far from sun-drenched clearings echoing with laughter and the thud of the possum skin ball, through the shattering silence of colonial disruption, into the painstaking, hopeful glow of rekindled flames. You've seen the deep wisdom woven into every leap and throw, the profound conversation with land and sky that sustained a people for longer than history can easily grasp. You've felt the weight of loss and the fragile, fierce power of remembrance. Now, let the images soften at the edges, like ochre paint dissolving in water. The soaring leaps become slow-motion arcs against a star-dusted sky. The complex patterns of the wrestlers blur into a gentle, rhythmic push and yield, like waves on a quiet shore. The intricate stitching on the kangaroo skin ball dissolves, leaving only the comforting, rounded weight of a sphere held in your mind's hand. The urgency fades. The debates quieten. The struggle, for this moment, rests. There is only the deep, slow breath of the land itself, ancient, scarred, yet profoundly alive. The embers of 1,000 fires, past and present, glow warm in the vast darkness. The stories whispered across generations become a lullaby hum, resonating in your bones, not your ears. Feel the immense stretch of time, 65,000 heartbeats synced with the seasons, the tides, the turning stars. Feel the resilience echoing in every revived step, every carefully remembered throw. It's a strength that bends but doesn't break, a memory that whispers even in silence, a game whose spirit outlives its rules. Let your own breath deepen, matching the slow pulse of the country beneath you. The red earth holds the stories. The stars keep the time. The spirit of the leap, the throw, the quiet strength. It endures. Rest now. Let the journey settle into dream. The land watches. The games sleep. But they are not gone. They are waiting, patient as the dawn, in the red heart of this ancient, whispering continent. Sleep. The story continues. In the quiet,